All right, 6 o'clock, and we are going to reconvene the local board of equalization. See, I threw you all for a loop tonight, huh? Right, go. Doesn't hurt to do it twice, you know. Or you guys want to turn your microphones on? All right, so we had one item from the April 18th local board of equalization that required some further work from the county assessor. County assessor is here tonight, reports that he was able to work with the property owner and come to agreement on the property value with no change. So we have just the one item tonight, unless you have any questions for Tom, but just the one item tonight, the consent agenda to approve the no change in the value of $798,400, zero change. So if there's no questions, I would take a motion to pass the consent agenda. So moved. Thank you, Jay.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leroy. Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda for the local board of equalization. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Can I get a motion to adjourn the local board of equalization? Thank you, Abe.
Second.
Thank you, Jay. I've got a motion and a second to adjourn the 2024 local board of equalization. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Tom, it's as simple as can be. Thank you for coming again. You guys would sign this, and then we will now convene the regular agenda with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the Monday, May 6th, 2024 Credit River City Council meeting. We'll begin with approving or amending the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda tonight? Abe?
Oh,
Okay.
yes, I'm sorry. I'd like to pull 3-1.
Okay, 3.1 from consent agenda will become 7.5. If there's no other changes, I would take a motion to approve the agenda with the one change.
So moved.
Thank you, Bill.
I'll second.
Thank you, Leroy. So I've got a motion and a second to approve the agenda with the one change. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Do we have is there a deputy here tonight? No?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's back. Writing tickets.
writing tickets? I don't think so. That's fire chief. That's Rick. We have fire chiefs, but no deputies. So we'll skip sheriff. Yeah, wrong badge. Come on, Rick, fill in. All right, consent agenda. Those items on the consent agenda which are considered routine or non-controversial are included as part of the consent agenda. Unless a council member specifically requests that an item on the consent agenda be removed and considered separately, items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion, a second, and a vote. Any item removed from the consent agenda shall be placed at the end of general business. Tonight on consent agenda, we have April claims approval, accept the crack filling quote from Gopher State Seal Coat, mutual aid agreement for fire services, and resolution 2024-18, a release of certain property from a developer's agreement. Is there anything from the consent agenda remaining that anybody would like to remove and consider separately? Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Bill. So I've got a motion and a second to approve consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Excuse me. Open forum. Open forum is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address the concerns to the council. And the public forum will be no longer than 30 minutes in length, and each presenter will have no more than 5 minutes to speak. Topics of discussion are restricted to local governmental topics rather than private or political agendas. The council may discuss, but will not take formal action on public forum presentations tonight. Do we have anybody that signed up for open forum? You didn't put out the sheet. Okay. Well, then, is there anybody like to speak in open forum? Yes, sir. You don't mind the square button on the microphone there, if you'll hold that button down. Push it one. There you go. So if you just don't mind stating your name and address, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Tom Bryant, and I live at 7697 Crestview Drive here in Credit River. My purpose in speaking tonight is to present a number of questions about the proposed government center and public works project. However, before presenting the questions, there's a concern about the process being utilized regarding the project. Section 1401.2 of the city's bylaws outlines the step steps the city shall take to enhance the public trust in local government. Those include first, creating transparency in its actions through honest and open communication. Second, making decisions and adopting public policies based on what is in the best interest of the public and the overall community. Third, supporting the public's right to know the public's business. Although the city has retained an architect for this project, proceeded with the space needs analysis, focused on 2 potential sites, and conducted other planning, has the city communicated directly the reasons for this project and the scope of the project to Credit River residents? If so, when and what was communicated? The city's bylaws require such open communication, especially in such a significant project. Moreover, the presentation document lists next steps for the project and states that community engagement will be step 5 out of step 6. With the space needs, the site location, funding sources, and project planning all having a higher priority in these steps, it seems as though there's a sense of inevitability about this project because the public input will be near the end of the process. However, this is not the process the city is currently undertaking for an assessment of the parks and trails system. That includes community outreach and feedback as a second step, not a 5th step for the Government Center and Public Works project. In short, I believe the next step should be reprioritized so that step 1 focuses on the residents' input. Moving on to the questions that I referenced, we have identified several topics with a number of sub-questions for you to consider and to hopefully respond to, and I'll pass those out when I'm done. First, why is a site with commercial zoning not in the presentation plan? Site A and Site B are zoned agricultural and bordered by some residential homes. Have any other sites been researched and investigated, specifically any sites that are zoned commercial, especially along 185th Street? What will be the total cost of the 3-phase Government Center and Public Works project? What is an estimated cost of the 26-acre parcel you're looking to purchase? Why is only Site B priced out and not Site A? How will the cost be paid? Are you going to look to bonds, other financing? What source of revenue will the city focus on to repay the cost of the project and any interest on bonds or other financing? Is that primarily property taxes? What is the estimated interest that would be incurred on any bonds or financing? What is the cost of a perk test to be performed on Site A or Site B? What is the cost of sewer and water if the perk test shows septic will not work there? Where is the cost of a well and septic system in the cost for Site B? We simply don't see it. Also, what equipment and machinery does the city plan to purchase that will be housed, stored, and maintained in the Public Works building and the covered building parking? What is the estimated cost of such equipment? Does the city plan to hire employees to operate a fleet of public works vehicles and equipment, snowplows, etc.? If so, what are the estimated salaries? What are the employment taxes and the benefits the city would have to be paying to such employees? Finally, what is the purpose of some of the proposed outbuildings and structures? Why is a cold storage building necessary? Why is a diesel fuel island being proposed, especially with the risk of underground fuel storage tank liability, if that is indeed what will be considered here? And why can't the city simply purchase diesel fuel at a local gas station rather than having our own diesel pump out there? Also, the salt storage shed that you're proposing are generally not aesthetically pleasing. I've seen those, and we're going to be seeing that. This site, Site B, is right out our kitchen window, and we're very concerned about it being there when this is an agricultural residential area of the city. So for those reasons, I'd ask you to give this serious consideration and communicate directly with the residents of the city, like you're doing with the Parks and Trails assessment, so that everyone in the city understands what this major significant project is going to entail. So that concludes my feedback, and I'll hand out question lists to you for your consideration. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else for open forum tonight?
Troy Williams, I live at 7920 Crestview Lane. I do not have nearly the prepared or just well thought through remarks as my neighbor here. Otherwise, just to say that I fully support everything he says. I know a lot of people in the room do here. And I would just ask you, as you think about where the city is going, the fact that it is even a city is just even mind-boggling at that, but this is our money. These are taxes we pay. there's so many times where government just continues to spend and spend and spend. We see it at all levels in the US right now, and it's unsustainable. And I would plead with you to do just the bare minimum. Do the bare minimum that you need to run this city. You do not need as much infrastructure as you think we need. And we talked about all the points there, kind of hit at that central theme. So that's my only thing. I have 4 kids. We've been a part of this community for almost 20 years now. And that's what I would ask, is just prudence and restraint.
Okay, anybody else for open forum tonight? Okay, we're gonna close open forum. We're gonna move on to number 5, which would be our fire department update. We'll welcome.
So I do have
Chief.
a question. When will these questions be answered?
So we have a presentation, we have a council workshop on this tonight. You know, we're nowhere near making a decision on building anything.
Yeah, how will we as residents be informed of these questions, the answers to these questions?
Yeah, well, wait till the presentation tonight and maybe some of these questions get answered in the presentation. Chief, you're up.
He's afraid to come in here.
No.
Actually see that, so that's good. Good here.
There you go.
All right.
Good evening, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight, everyone. It's good to see you all. So Kathy and I had talked last week about we had the mutual aid agreement on the consent agenda, but we thought maybe it'd be a good idea to have a little update here. As into the first 4 months of the new year. One of the things we talked about, Kathy and I talked about was, so with the city update, we're now just gonna do it twice a year, mid-year and then end of year. We were finding that doing quarterly was kind of repetitive and boring. So there wasn't much to talk about. So we're gonna do the twice a year now. And we'll just piggyback that same presentation with you guys. So we'll do it that way from now on. So if you want to start here, so just a little bit about us. That number down at the very bottom, paid on call firefighters, we're down to 22. So we had 4 retirements this Jim, if I'm saying that right, we had 4 retirements in the last month. So service years for those guys though, 27 years, 3 of them was 17 and 1 of them was just under 15, I think. So they all did their time and did well. So we're gonna miss them for sure, but we are down to 22 on the paid on call side of things from, you know, we're budgeted for 50. So just kind of that falling down the chain here, which is kind of the problem with every department in the region for sure.
So Rick, you still would have 50 paid on calls even with the full-time piece, you think?
So that's what we're budgeted for.
Yeah.
But we've never, well, as you know,
Yep.
we've never been near that even before we went to the full-time model.
Right.
So I think the most we ever had was 46. And that was for about a day. So, yeah, so move to the next one there. So these numbers, again, these are just from the end of the, or the middle of the year, so it'll be April to, or January 1st to April 30th, but just a little bit of a metric from the year since we started the full-time staffing. So back in July of 2023, when we started the full-time staffing, you can see the comparisons from where we were from July to April of 23. So cut our times way in half, almost in half, 49%. Our public education events, the numbers on the right are on the right side are 24. So 49%, we've done 44 of the public education events and 61 inspections before that. Those bottom 2 numbers, the 44 public education events and the 61 preliminary inspections were 0.
So maybe a couple of education events, but just couldn't make it happen. So we're doing well on that end. And then our response time is being cut way in half, so. So January 1st to April 30th, these are our numbers here, and I'll get to these numbers in a second when you see the end of year stuff, so. I have a little update on a recent meeting that we had, so. 4 fires, 8 medical emergencies, and 3 motor vehicle accidents, so those numbers always kind of stay the same. I can't explain why, but from year to year, they don't climb much, so. And I'll explain the medicals here. And Kathy, if you want to talk about that as well, we'll talk about that on the next couple of slides here. So here we are. These are our numbers through the from January 1st to April 30th. Prior Lake, we've done 402 calls, Credit River 30, 25 in Spring Lake. So a total of 462 calls for the year so far. Up significantly from last year. You can see that the number in Prior Lake is significantly higher due to our medical response. And I can talk about that. I know you have questions, so. And that would be it for the numbers as far as that's concerned, but if you want to talk about the medical response,
Yeah, that'd be great.
yeah.
I can kick it off. I provided an update to the council after we had our meeting the last week or two.
Yeah.
We talked about it. The conversations have been started with the sheriff's department, and really it's in regards to kind of transitioning their priority of calls. The fire department has started working with them on doing that and getting that policy rewritten, if you will, for their dispatch. And so what they're doing right now is working with the fire department on kind of redoing all of that. Once they have that done, they will train that new policy with their dispatch and then begin to implement it. And so they're hoping about June time period that would be implemented. And what that is looking at is really changing the priorities of the calls so that fire gets called out on more of those medical emergencies like you're seeing them doing right now in Prior Lake. So we're seeing that's coming, that's in the works. They just need to update their policy, get their training done within dispatch so that they know how to handle it appropriately.
Yeah, so the big thing right now, how they operate this system is if the police department or the sheriff's department calls us for assistance, then we're paged out and we respond. We're automatically dispatched on high priority medicals. We're dispatched on all motor vehicle accidents and high priority medicals, like I said, automatically. Anything else, we're called by the police or sheriff's department for assistance. Prior Lake Police Department has been doing that since our inception because of their busy schedules and the number of calls they're dealing with. So the sheriff's department, we've been in talks the whole time. It's just this training part of things as far as Credit River and Spring Lake Township are concerned. It's the training piece of it and the policy rewriting. So as Kathy said, that's happening now. So both Credit River and Spring Lake, starting mid-June, we hope. I'm pretty confident in that. You're gonna start seeing us more out here responding to things that we frankly need to be at, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Council members, any questions for Chief Stenhouse?
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you,
Thanks.
Rick.
Great, thank you.
Have a great day. Be safe.
It's almost in there.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for chief, but I brought this up last time. Of the calls, 6.5% for Credit River. Versus 87% for Prior Lake, and we're being charged 18% for that. I know we're in a 10-year agreement, but I think it might be prudent to go back and start to discuss that, or at least look once they start taking these medical and see if we're a little closer, because it doesn't seem like we're paying the right price.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard.
I think we can start the
There
conversation.
isn't much of an option for us. Not like we can go, stand up our own fire department to cover that, but,
I think we could put some language in there to protect us a little more. You know, X% over or something of that nature. Right now, we're paying 2.9% more or 2.9 times what the number of calls are. So could we say not to exceed or something of that nature? We could potentially go back. We're gonna be talking in 5 years, right? So why not start that conversations a little sooner?
yeah.
And I think that, on that point, when we get to equal par and we start seeing how those numbers play out, that'll change too. So
Yeah.
where do they fall out once we're on the same kind of call out pattern that Fire Lake is on? Right now, you're seeing some pretty big sways. There's always gonna be some sway, but where does that level out once we get through this dispatch piece? So.
Right,
Yep.
and then we continue to add larger value homes down in Yellowstone, and that drives up that cost as well. Since it's all based on tax capacity.
Well,
So
market value.
we're going to continue to build larger homes here, and we're gonna have more of a burden. So I think it's very prudent the next time he comes and we see these numbers, we should continue to watch those.
Okay,
And with that also, especially with property values. Getting the ISO adjusted rating. Will make a big difference for, at least for property casualty. And we should really push to try to get that sooner.
well, I think, the last time Chief was here, they were gonna do that this year.
Yeah.
It's, not a quick
No,
process,
it's not.
so,
It's not. I think it's-
yep. Cause I think they only had 6 months of experience with full time, so I don't think that's enough,
It's not a lot.
not a lot of time for measuring the number for the insurance company, so. All right, sounds good. So jump into general business, 7.1, resolution 2024-19, approving the preliminary development agreement for Yellowstone of Credit River. Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor. The Yellowstone of Credit River, we approved their preliminary plats back in April, at the April meeting, and they had wanted to move forward with building a model home on one of their lots. In order to do that, we worked on putting together a preliminary development agreement. The zoning code has in their language that you cannot build a home on an outlot, or you cannot build on an outlot. That land is currently an outlot that the preliminary plat is over, so. Zoning code says you cannot do that on an outlot without a development agreement. So we've moved forward with doing this preliminary development agreement, which relates to that lot that we have on the preliminary plat, and would allow them to move forward with the building of a model home. It would still have to go through all of the permitting processes in order to, or the building permit process for the home. So what you have in front of you today is looking at resolution 2024-19, which approves the preliminary development agreement for the Yellowstone of Credit River. And like I said, this is in relation to just allowing this model home to move forward. And we would be working on a final or a follow-on development agreement for the rest of the work there and final plats.
Okay. Council members, any questions or discussion? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve resolution 2024-19.
So move.
Thank you, Jay.
Second.
Thank you, Lee. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
got a motion and a second to approve resolution 2024-19, approving the preliminary developers agreement for the Yellowstone of Credit River. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 7.2, approve the contract with MSA for the Community Visioning and Parks Master Plan. Administrator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor. With our 2024 budgeting, we had talked about doing kind of a vision statement for the community, kind of in some strategic planning. We also had money in the budget for a parks and trails assessment. I've worked with MSA, was working with them before they became our planner and trying to put this together to look at how this process could be done kind of as a joint process as we're moving through this with kind of, to save costs for the community and end up with these two documents at the end. So they put together the scope of services for a strategic plan and a scope of services for a parks assessment. We would look at doing these as like a task order under the contract they have right now for planning services. Community strategic plan is a $20,000 project, parks and trails assessments, $12,000. Chris Jansen with MSA is on the Zoom meeting, and I'm gonna kind of turn it over and look to share, and maybe he can walk through what the projects are, and I've got some here that I can pull up and we can kind of talk to them and tell you about what they've done and what this project would look like.
Thanks, Kathy. I hope Yep.
Not hearing
Can everybody
you,
hear
Chris.
me? No? Can you hear me?
Oh, mute.
Can you hear me now? No?
Nope.
I can hear you online, but that's it.
Okay. Well, that's good. I guess you can hear me online, but that's not
Maybe,
super helpful for.
Maybe
Yeah, I
I'll
know.
walk through some of the examples while if you get your technology working, you jump in and interrupt me. Otherwise, I'll share up some screens here and try and maneuver. There we go. So this is a Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan that they created working with another community. You can kind of flip through and see Scania was a township like us, I guess at one point in time became a city, but the product that they go through and in working on putting all these together, going through the planning process, working with the communities to put together some information and pull it all together, looking at the trails and the parks, goals and strategies, and kind of what the needs are. So it's a bigger picture one. I'm going to see if I can easily maneuver here to.
Any luck with the audio yet, Kathy? No.
Another one that they've done.
Okay.
Just kind of looking at the vision and assessments. Cultural, kind of the goal of this is to really get the community's input on what we want in our parks and trails for the city. What should they look like? What do we want? And get that and then develop something out. This helps with our comprehensive planning. It helps as we're talking with developments. We use it to build up our capital improvement plan as we look at what is in our parks today. What are we looking to build to really decide what our community wants. Here's, as you look at it, kind of a bigger picture of, okay, looking at the different inputs across it and building this out. And I think if I remember flipping through here, you get to the strategy and the action, potential funding, and looking at where do these kind of come into the mix. And these are living documents that once you have them, you can kind of keep working on these other pieces and look at ways if, one of our strategies is, ADA assessment for the parks. Well, if we needed to make ADA improvements, if you see grant funding that comes across that can be used for that type of stuff, well, now we can go and we can look at this to figure out how do we work all of this together to be able to utilize these. These become great tools for identifying what our projects are, identifying funding sources that may be available out there that can help us achieve these goals and these objectives, and then applying for them and putting together those packages. So this is kind of that parks assessment piece that we are looking at.
Do we have that? I can't see anything. Do we have that?
I have.
They're not in the packet, but you can go to City of Scania and Pine City.
I have the links I can forward to you. I just grabbed them this afternoon. So then on the strategic planning side, I'm gonna see if I can come back around and share again. Chris, I see you come back up. Are you vocal
I-
yet?
Maybe, can you hear me?
I
Shane, can you hear me?
don't hear you
Yeah,
coming through yet, Chris.
Shane, can they hear you? Would be the question. Maybe you can translate for me.
Kathy, can you hear me?
Shane, I don't hear you either. So what's going on?
Interesting.
Maybe it's.
I
on our
heard you,
side,
Shane.
not your side. I'm. Sure. I see it right at the moment. I'll keep plugging through.
Yeah,
Gotta
keep
figure out
plugging
what's
through.
going on with the website. So this is the strategic plan, a sample kind of one of a strategic plan that they've put together. You can see developing vision, mission, goals, objectives, existing plans that this community had, and some, online surveys. And here's your strategies, goals, promote and enhance durance, sense of place, and you can see your strategy, description, actions that get associated with it. Community vision with goal, here's utilize community visioning, goal strategies and other deliverables and the pieces that go along with this. And once again, this is kind of, use these can help us guide budgeting as we look at budgeting and direction of where we're going with the community as we go through it. So those are some kind of samples of the documents that they've put together. This process would start with kind of some preliminary work, then doing a community survey, some survey work and some community engagement. Putting that into work sessions with the council to kind of flush through some of the documents and eventually ending up with a final product that the council could approve. So if there's any questions, it looks like Chris is saying good job, so hopefully we've got it covered there. But if technology was on our side, Chris would be doing all the talking and not me.
Yep.
If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, council members, discussion, questions?
I'm not sure I want to spend $12,000 for a parks plan. I wouldn't mind sending out an online survey so people could fill that thing out. I don't think it costs $12,000 to do that. And I thought we budgeted for maintaining the parks we have. I don't remember budgeting $12,000 for a parks plan, a document that doesn't do anything other than document things. So, but I'm bifurcating that with we haven't talked about the vision statement or the vision, community vision yet. So that would be my comments on the park master.
Kind of along the same lines, Bill. I think what we do need a survey. We do need some input. We need to figure out what we want, but I'm not sure if we're ready. Big thing that stands out, I think, is the amount. And for what? I'm not sure that it's everything that we need today.
We'll get a nice report like we saw. Well,
Yeah.
I couldn't see it, but we'll
Yeah.
get a nice
So
report like-
remember that we have a capital fund with dollars in it today that we've collected over the years from lots that have come on board.
Right. And
That
I-
doesn't mean we have
we
to
don't-
spend it.
But we also have people requesting upgrades in parks, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
is it prudent to go ahead and do a parks master plan, which you can plan then your upgrades over time? Prudently using the money that's in the capital budget with a
I
plan,
think-
or would you rather just ad hoc?
Uh,
Do upgrades, as requested? Cause then you end up with, one park gets something, one park does not, and you don't have a plan to complete all that capital improvement.
I'm
We
for survey.
spend time capital improving our roads, we spend
I'm all
time
for
capital
survey.
improving,
I'm all for
Something
the
else.
survey. I'm all for finding out what we need, what we want.
but a survey may not tell you. you know, that there's a deficiency in a particular
Or
product
tell us that we
or.
need to move forward quicker. So I think we should survey. I think we should do that first. I don't know that we're ready to develop a plan for it until we've got a survey in hand. We can probably move forward with that a little bit more.
But to be prudent at spending that money, I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that you wanna spend ad hoc.
No,
No.
I wouldn't spend that either.
But that's what you're saying, if you don't have a plan for it, then you are spending the money ad hoc.
The process, like I said, it's the survey followed with a workshop, so you can really get the community sitting down, looking at ideas, looking at thoughts. The survey gives you kind of that first level, then you bring it into the workshop setting to get more input onto it, and you develop a plan. The first plan we looked at was more elaborate. The second plan that we kind of looked at is more in line with what we're scoping out with this project here. And like I said, it does provide value because I have money, we put money in the budget this year for playground equipment. We've had a lot of requests and I've had more asking me, are we going to get this done this year?
I'm not disputing that. I agree with that. I heard that last summer.
But the goal is with this too, then we can understand it's not my going out there and selecting playground equipment that I think may be appropriate, but it's really getting the community's feedback of what type of stuff that they want to look at. What is, kind of an assessment of what's our current stuff, what type of stuff do you want in this system, in the parks? In completing that whole round assessment, so you can look at not only today's planning or today's budgeting, but future budgeting on it.
And also remember that, we're back up the amount that we charge for park fees.
Understood. And Chris, how did we do the parks that we have today? Did we hire a consultant, pay $12,000 to do a plan? Or do we just put in new equipment, fix the swing set? Blacktop, pull the weeds and blacktop the basketball courts? Do we need $12,000 consulting document to tell us that's what we have to do?
Back in 2005, we decided to put in the basketball courts and upgrade the playground equipment from
The rainbow system.
rainbow systems to a commercial grade. And we did all the parks relatively the same.
And you did that with yourself? You didn't hire
We
anyone?
went out, talked to the folks, and I brought our catalogs with that we got from the play system people, and some of the areas got a little carried away with what they wanted. They wanted some $30,000 or $40,000 system that Prior Lake has. Just said, no, we can't afford it. Well, here's what we're gonna do, and Creekwood got a spider thing and a balance bar, and we did a couple other things, but we tried to keep them all the same so nobody could say that we were treating one neighborhood different than the other. And it is time for an upgrade on some of this, on all of it, as a matter of fact, but so that's that.
I would say part of this goes into your comprehensive plan too. You get a parks plan, and then when you're building out your parks and your trails piece of your comprehensive plan, you've got a lot of this work done that you can build that comprehensive plan piece with. So,
And or adjust your fee that you're collecting, because maybe you're not collecting enough.
I just worry we're gonna get inertia, and after we have the plan, now we're gonna get, okay, well, now we gotta do something.
Right.
And
One other.
I'm not hearing anyone, I haven't heard one community member say we need to have a plan for our parks. I heard that we had to maintain them, upgrade them, but that was all. And that's what I thought we budgeted for this year.
One
That
other
was my
thing,
Right.
before I got on the board, they put up the baseball backstops, and all they're doing is growing vines. Nobody uses them anymore.
Right.
A lot of the neighborhoods and these parks frankly are mom and pop, little condo parks is what they are. They're not suited for a baseball field, or we try to keep the grass cut nice, they can play soccer, football or something there, but so, Andy. My suggestion is, we go forward with getting a survey, whether we do it ourselves and we ask for public input, so first what they want. And we take it slower. I'm not in favor of this.
I agree with Jake. I'm all for a survey.
So you wanna hire somebody to do a survey then?
Or we ask for public input. If we can do that.
I don't know how to do it, but Google Forms isn't it something that you can get for free? To do that? Now, the only thing is people can vote on thousands of things if they really are interested.
We have some resident groups that seem to be pretty good at surveying.
Mr. Dorena.
Yes.
Mayor, I would say, I would highly recommend getting somebody who knows it to go out and do the survey. You can do a survey and put it out there, but getting information that actually helps. We've got money in the budget to go buy playground equipment. I can go throw money at something, but getting something the community wants is more important with it. So getting that and getting an informed survey, if you don't want to do the big assessment, but you want to do the survey and part of it, we can adjust the scope of work. But I'm gonna recommend you use somebody and on one, because you're gonna get a much better product and much better results with somebody that's informed and knows and is used to doing this and knows the questions asked to get us the information we need. And two, we don't have the time on staff to put together a survey and to do all this and to get it out. So if you want to not use the consultant and you're looking to your staff to do this, I'm gonna say, what else are we dropping? Or maybe we'll get to it come December, January time period. Because of where, where's our priorities and what do we have? We don't have the bandwidth right now to handle it, so. We can adjust scopes and we can work with them to adjust the scope on the parks assessment if you don't want to do the full thing. And take that down, but if you do want to do a survey, I would highly recommend, unless you want to reprioritize other work or push other things off, we need to have some consultant help. We don't have the manpower to do it otherwise.
I'd say we wait then until we have.
Yes, I've got a proposal.
Yeah, and then we do the maintenance, so we do what we heard the community wanted last year, at least the people that attended those summer events.
So why couldn't we leverage some of the community on it?
We could.
I mean, so we had a group that went out and got 350 results.
Okay.
Yep.
And consistently got 350 results on 3 times. There's a great audience here today that's highly interested in where we're going. I bet you we can get more if we keep saying we're gonna build a huge government center. So let's start getting the word out here and and why not get that? I agree. I mean, we built this back in the day. I understand we don't have staff to do it. Why do we need staff to go do it? Why can't we as 5 people come with questions and we could solicit help from anyone that wants to from the community, and then we can start going out and getting that information.
So how are you gonna build them? Excuse me. Order, please. How are you gonna justify what we're collecting for park fees then? So how do we know that we're collecting enough?
Because we're gonna maintain, aren't we maintaining, Mr. Mayor, aren't we maintaining our parks this year with the money we put in the budget?
For capital expenses, that doesn't do maintenance. That's for capital improvements,
So we collect money from developers just for,
capital improvements.
okay, and isn't that capital when you're putting in something in the ground that's gonna last 20 years? I think it is.
If you're replacing something, it is capital. Correct.
So
But what if you're not collecting enough, right? Or what if you're collecting too much? I think you just need to think that.
I don't want to
before
spend money
you.
because we have it. I mean,
I'm not saying that we do either, but I think it's an opportunity to look at. Are we collecting enough in the right spot to make sure that we have enough for the future as it develops?
What are you saying? Our fee schedules aren't right?
Don't know, can't answer that.
Well, they always have been. We have had plenty of money in the park fund.
Yeah,
And
okay,
I
you don't wanna do it, that's fine. I'm just saying. dude,
I didn't
I'm just
say I don't
asking-
wanna do
I'm
it.
not
I
saying
wanted to
to
say
I'm just asking,
get the input of the people.
giving you the opportunity to look at the other pieces of this puzzle. Right? I understand that, I'm not about spending the money just for spending the money. I think there's value to the output of the study that can help us justify what we're doing in our fee schedule and help us justify, a plan for spending the money that's in that account that we've collected already. Rather than just, ad hoc doing it.
Should we
It's
have
not
an
saying
open
that we have
house?
to spend,
Should we have an open house workshop?
I think that was part of the, that's part,
That's
part of
what they're-
part of the stuff,
we don't
part
have
of
to
the
spend.
study.
We could certainly at least have something come forward and maybe we get a better direction to go. To different meeting, just let this one die.
We can let it die tonight. I think, if we need other recommendations for it, we don't need to do anything on that action tonight.
My suggestion is we let it die. We come up with something different.
Sure.
Could we get I don't know. We get a committee for everything else we wanna do, can we get a committee started to go out and go to, the 4 neighborhoods, and I got the books laying in my house, see what they kinda.
Well, that is
Like-
that is a piece that, later in the agenda, we have, on the agenda here, so we can talk
That could
about
be
that.
a
at the
great
point.
content for those meetings.
Right, yeah, you're holding them in parks.
We can do a survey. Or
I do think though, as we're talking about the future, the vision is one thing that we really have to get nailed down.
Yep.
Because when I
Right.
see these presentations, I agree, they look fantastic. But it feels like Lakeville, it feels like Prior Lake, it feels like Savage, and are we that? And I think we need to step back and be able to look at, who are we, what are we? So I think there is some validity, I don't really, the strategic planning piece, I didn't think that was a little bit much too. I know I'm veering away from the master parks plan. But can we scale that down? There might be some validity in that, in my opinion. Getting some good getting some good feedback from the community and being able to understand who are we, right? I know 350 people told us what they thought already. If MSA is able to get more community members telling us what they want, maybe that's the first piece rather than going to the parks. To be able to put that main piece out front of who are we, then we can say, okay, well, we've determined we're not gonna have all kinds of parks and trails because we have all kinds of space, if that's the route we went. Now we can start to say, well, what's our master park plan? I think there is some validity in that, but I don't think 20 grand is necessary. Maybe we could scale back and say, let's just go after what's our vision, who are we? And get that feedback.
Leroy.
Back, probably 15 years ago, Scott County was gonna come up with a trail system. And that talk lasted 2 years and went out the window, so. Because they didn't want to put it along the county roads. They were looking to run it through our neighborhoods. And I was at those meetings, and that was the discussion of the.
It still exists, because it's all in the regional trail planning that is out there, so all those things still exist out there.
So we can.
So what you're asking for is that you'd like to have that, a different scope sent out for that item and to have.
Yeah, I think we could scale back that scope on the strategic planning and really, and maybe it's more of just a vision plan and.
Yes.
Get a targeted opportunity for the community to come in here and be able to say, well, here's some thoughts, right? I know that we've got this paper that some other people have said, and we can throw some together and start to just put them on a table and say, pick these apart. Do you like these? Do you not like these? Or other ideas, right? And I think an organization like MSA could help facilitate those conversations, and maybe they've got a way to help drive more of that community involvement that we don't know how to do. Great, let's see if we can leverage that, but I think the strategic plan, I think that's a little bit more than we need right now too.
We look for a 1-page vision statement. Not for $20,000. And we have such good information already from the survey. I know it wasn't a city approved survey, but
Good survey.
it's good. Yeah, it wasn't, to me, it wasn't biased in the questions. And we got a lot of good information back already. A lot of people. In my understanding, it went to everybody, not just a subset of people, went to every citizen. Whether they all responded is one thing. But so I agree with Abe.
So, okay, I guess we won't do either of them.
Well, can we make a,
scale
Well, I
it back and
think
say
you
it's gonna
asked
be
for-
$5,000? What do we get for
I think
$5,000?
you're asking for another scope.
Yeah.
So we need to have seen our scope.
What do we get for $5,000? Can we have a workshop that they facilitate where we have, sort of we invite the community? And we get their feedback, we do those little dot things on the wall. And then we decide what we want. Whatever it is.
We ask them for a different scope after the discussion.
Chris just said he'll come back with a different scope. He's heard the conversation here and they'll re-scope it. And we can bring it back.
Okay.
And look at it.
All right. 7.3, 170th Street Culvert Project, Administrator Reynolds, you're probably gonna take that since Shane's probably
Since we don't seem to have.
remote audio.
So the 170th Street culvert project, we've been working on that for a while. To put together the easements that we need to do the project. As we looked at it, this project touches 4 properties. We reached out to the 4 property owners to ask about easements. 3 out of the 4 provided an easement to the city to do the work. The 4th one has not. So as we look at this project, it has been planned to expand the culverts and kind of fix some of the sloping around it for safety issues. The alternative process would be just to line the culvert and move forward, at which point we don't need the easements that we're working with. Or that we're trying to obtain. We have enough with what we have. So kind of in front of you tonight is your options as we look at this is, do we want to keep trying to move forward with the project as it's been planned, which is to expand it, to work on the slopes coming down and to fix the culvert and then to improve the safety of it. At which point in time, if we want to move forward with that, then we'll talk about the options on how we move that process. The other option is to say, we're not going to worry about doing that and the easements that we need to do that work. Let's just line the culvert and leave it as it is today. So those are kind of the first set of decision factors. And then the second set of decision factors is if we want to continue to move forward with how the project is planned, then we need to work on that easement. Working on the easement, we have 2 options. We can move forward with negotiations. Council can authorize, say we want to authorize staff to negotiate a price with the individual. We would then set up a closed session at the next meeting in order to negotiate or to kind of discuss what the purchase price could be for that easement and the amount we would authorize us to negotiate with. The second alternative is if we want to do this and we couldn't negotiate it and we were willing to go forward with an eminent domain process, at that point in time, we would need to start this process the right way to kind of back up an eminent domain process, which would be getting an appraisal, determining that, and then negotiating based off of what the proposed price for the easement area would be. So it's kind of asking council, how do you want to move forward? We've got to tackle this last easement before we can do this project, or like I said, give up on the safety improvements that we're looking at and just line it and move forward. So kind of asking council for where do you want to go with this one? How do you want to move forward?
Okay, thank you, Administrator Reynolds. Council members, discussion, Leroy.
One, do it right or don't do it at all. We need to widen out the north side if you want to put this trail, which should go along one side or the other of 170th Street for folks to be able to go up and down it. So either do the culvert the right way and replace it. And put a liner in it. That's kind of ridiculous.
So it seems to me to be appropriate to try and negotiate with the property owner. It's not very much easement that we're asking for. It's a small amount. I think worthwhile attempting that first. I think an eminent domain is way too expensive of a process to go down. I think if we can try to negotiate that first. And if it doesn't, then I think we have to reconsider maybe just lining it for now, because the bottom of the culvert's gone right now. We have to get moved. We've been talking about this one for 3 years, so we've got to get something moving. So is everybody comfortable with that piece? So Kathy, if you'll try to work on that piece and we'll get that.
Together, closed session, and have that for our next meeting, so we can talk about what kind of prices that you're willing to authorize negotiations for. So, and we'll work from there.
Sounds good. All right. 7.4, discuss schedule for summer meetings in the parks. Administrator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor. Last year we went through and we had a series of meetings in the 4 parks with the community. We did all 4 parks in, I think it was over a course of 2 weeks in the month of June. And so it's looking at that, what do we want to do? Do we want to do these meetings in the park? Do you want to focus them all during the month of June again? Do you want to spread them out where you do 1 park in June, 1 in July, August, September? And then look at getting these scheduled. So we did those last year, but it was the mayor and 1 council member came to each of the parks, so we didn't have notice requirements or open meeting issues associated with it. So just kind of throwing it out there to see what you want to do for meetings this summer, if you want to do them. And kind of the timing. Do you want them all in June again? Or do you want them spread out?
Okay. Thank you, Administrator Reynolds. Council members, discussion or questions.
I just have
Marker.
maybe a question for Peter. Can we have more council members there as long as if I went and not talk and just observe? Are we breaking any rules?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Marker, as long as there's more than 2 of you present and the subject of the meeting is city business, even if you don't plan to speak, we should simply notice it as a special meeting and you can attend. We just would have to notice it.
That's my question. I have the same desire to attend all.
Okay. Thoughts on other questions there? Again, well receptive last year. I think that was a really great opportunity that we had to get out in the public and chat with people in a little less informal spot. And Leroy.
We should notice all 4 of them.
So
that they could all possibly attend them. Hear all the residents have to say, not just the park in our neighborhood.
And that's fine. But then the next question becomes is, do we want to do it all 4 all at once, or spread it out amongst different neighborhoods throughout the summer, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
What?
One every 2 weeks from July 1st to August 15th. I don't know. And have them split around the city.
So like one in June, 1 in July, 1 in August, 1 in September.
Okay. I wouldn't mind a little narrow, like every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks.
Yes, or can we, you want to do a couple of weeks?
Or do you do 2 in June, 2 in July?
Sure.
Yeah, would you rather do that? Leroy.
Can we do cases on Thursday night when the food truck's there?
No, I think the food truck organizer moved out of town.
Oh, yeah. Probably.
Abe, it looks like you have something.
June doesn't work for me personally, but we can shift it a little bit.
But if we're gonna do 4
Yeah,
of them,
then I could hit July. I think what we need to do though is we need to have what's our content, so.
right?
Cause I think last year was great because
Yeah.
Administrator Reynolds was
Just
coming
coming
on, it
forward.
was But now we've got, you know, government building, we've got parks, we've got what's our vision. I think these are a great opportunity to solicit some of that organically, right?
Yeah.
So how do we get that out? I think too, how do we publicly make it so versus just an email, maybe we could put some signs up coming into the neighborhoods, so you could, you know, see that for a couple weeks. Everyone drives past it for, you know, a couple weeks. And
So
things
let's
of
do,
that nature.
so why don't we do this? Here's a suggestion. Why don't we, let's look at the calendar and pick our dates. And then at our next meeting, we can have some proposals for some content and stuff. So. What night, what day of the week works better? Wednesday? It doesn't interfere with planning commission then. What about the 12th?
Okay.
12, 10. Or what do we say we're gonna do? We're gonna do.
Every other week?
We're gonna do 2 in June. So then let's do, back it up, let's do 5, 12. 10 and 24.
What?
How
How about June?
July.
Yeah, I didn't want to get on the 3rd, so I was thinking after, so 2 in June, right?
Maybe.
The 5th and the June 5th, June 12th.
Isn't that like graduation week and all
Yeah.
that stuff? Should
Yeah,
we just
let's
have
get
it
it out
like
now.
12th?
Okay.
Instead, start with the
So do
12th.
1 in June,
Well, June 12th and June 26th, what's wrong with those 2 dates?
because I'm probably not available the last
Oh,
2
I'm
weeks
sorry.
of June.
All right, sorry. So the 12th for sure.
Yes. Then how about the 10th
Okay.
of July? 24th of July? And then August 7th, the last one?
Sounds good.
Put that together for you.
And we're just gonna have a special meeting listing that.
Yep.
I'll post for special meeting. And we'll do this and we will work up some agendas for these or some topics for the meetings.
Yeah, so I'd
Given the
suggest,
Spread of them, they'll probably have some different things you want to cover.
yeah, I'd say council members, if you have some feedback for content, please forward it to Kathy, probably within the next week or so, before our next meeting. Because we're gonna talk about that. We've got, then I think it leaves us 2 meetings before the first one, then we can talk about the content and anything, other details. Okay, anything else on that?
There you go.
All right, we'll move on to 7.5, the April 15th, 2024 city council meeting minutes.
Yeah, I just pulled that to note, per our bylaws 306.2, agenda material will also be available online through the city website. So last time we didn't have the PDF for the audit out in the packet. So I just want to make sure that we get that in the packet moving forward. Anything that we're presenting, we should have in the packet.
Yep. Okay,
So can I ask for clarification? Are you wanting the audit presentation attached to the meeting minutes?
We have the audit report in the packet itself,
Yes.
but we didn't have the presentation. So as I was reading these prior to being on here, reading through, I don't remember how long that.
83 pages.
83 pages was very difficult, but if I had, a PowerPoint of 10 pages, that was a lot easier. And if I wanted to dive in there, I could start going after the 83 pages. So I think when we're presenting, we should put those in here.
Also, the public's looking at it. Should be.
So you're not asking to amend the meeting minutes to.
I'm not, I'm saying if we are adding things on here, we should amend the packet. Or better yet, have the packet updated with that presentation beforehand.
so is there any changes then on the minutes that we need to
No.
make?
So I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Abe. Thank you,
Second.
Bill.
Yep.
So I've got a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the April 15th, 2024 city council meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Move into section 8.1. April building report, Administrator Reynolds.
See, we're trying to share here the building permit. As you can see, we can continue to have numbers in 2024 that are exceeding 23's numbers. 23, we had 38 applications in the month of April. This year we had 47. We've issued 46 permits in 2024 compared to the 24 that we had in 2023. So building permits and zoning stuff is continuing to grow, and we've got a lot going on in that regards. There are 9 new home permits that have been received already this year, and we're at 9 million for our major permits valuations that we're seeing so far this year. So just kind of an update there. Numbers are high. And continue to work.
Okay, thank you. Council members, any questions on the building permits? Okay, we'll move on to 8.2, March year-to-date expenses. Dominique, do you have that one?
Sure.
Or is that Kathy, we're gonna take that? Is that Dominique? Dominique, would you don't mind grabbing the microphone there, please?
So the report actually is March year to date. So that year to date, you can see where we are, the percent of budget. So general fund, we have the year to date amount 820,000 against a budget of 3,015,606, and then it goes through each of the funds so that we're tracking along the majority of the items by category. We might have some tracking where individually it's ahead of the game or behind the game, but on average, everything's tracking.
Okay.
Question,
Bill?
is there any expenses we've incurred this year that wasn't budgeted? Any material expenses? In any of these numbers?
Yes, I mean, we're within budget, but we had financial assistance for getting books ready for the audit. So that's within the finance category. That was not necessarily planned for, but we had professional services in there. So we're still within budget on all of that and working to make sure we maintain within budget. I think that's the main expense that we've had that was not necessarily envisioned when we put together the budget. And
Okay.
contained it.
And then the fire, that's a full year there, so if I wanted to normalize out the first quarter, I could divide that by 12 and then multiply by 3 to kind of like normalize that. Is that the full year fire department?
Actually, it's half year.
Oh,
So you just multiply by 2.
half year. Ouch. Damn.
We
Okay,
We pay fire twice a year, so they bill us the first half and then they'll bill us the second half, so
got it.
it's at 50%. And that's where it should be, even though
Yeah.
it's more than the, 25% that you'd expect for the quarter.
Yeah.
Most of them are where you would expect to see them based off of the timing of when expenses come in the different categories. And just one thing I would note that Dominic didn't hit on is when you look at the CSTS systems at the bottom of the page and you see the sewer general category, and you see those at, roughly 3-6% in that area. To note, that's basically 1 month's worth of bills. February's bill was paid later, so basically as you're looking at that category and you go, it should be probably closer to 25%, but that was really only 1 month of payment that's in that first quarter right now. So we look at that at the end of the second quarter and you'll see some balancing outcome.
Cause I'm new at this, Dominique, is the first quarter, is there seasonality in our invoices, meaning is it spread out equally in terms of what we pay each year, every quarter? Or is the first quarter light in terms of expenses and the fourth quarter heavy? Because if I normalize out for the fire department, normalize it, it's kind of like we're probably $500,000, $500,000 under budget on general fund in the first quarter. I normalize it.
I would say we have, more in December because of the criminals.
Okay,
We have about a 12 that comes in.
so we should expect to be a little under. When you look
Yep.
at year-to-date numbers.
And then there's a handful that are not monthly.
Okay. Thank you.
Kind of depends on snow in the end of the year as well.
Yeah.
Yes, good point.
Right, it didn't snow,
Seasonal.
right? We had the one snow event pretty much. and-
Well, look at that, 205,000 for the year.
Yeah,
And the other one in terms of seasonality is the bond principal is paid
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was just looking at the general,
Yeah.
fund, but yes. Thank you.
okay. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Kevin?
question.
Abe?
Is this coming from Compass or is this just a spreadsheet that we're running this off of?
This is a spreadsheet.
Okay. Do we know when the Compass reports are gonna be done that we are paying for?
They are,
It's working on it. There's some few nuances, things that we're straightening out. So this report was pulled a different way.
Okay.
But while we're not fully getting the reports here off of that one yet, we're getting to the point where we can, but it is being actively used because it's nice because I can get in and dig into things and look at items at this point.
Okay. Yeah, and one of the other things I'm hoping that has also is, year to date, we're 25% of the way through. Can we just highlight those that are off budget and then, have those as maybe comments in there, right?
Mhm.
So obviously I figured the fire was payment twice a year, so I was fine with 50%, but when I start looking at some of those in the 30s, 32s, 38s, how are we doing with election? I'm assuming, primary is gonna be a lot lower, so I assume the bulk of it's
Yep.
gonna be in
November.
November, but I think it's good if we could just walk through that, so maybe just in the future, just tick those and we can walk through those.
I would highlight though on the preliminary that we do get reimbursement.
Yep, there's a $10,000 reimbursement.
In the
I
election.
think it's roughly
And
10,000.
that's not in there yet.
Okay.
So just so you're aware.
Any other questions, council members? Okay. Anything else? Kathy?
No.
Abe, do you have anything?
I do not.
Leroy?
Hopefully we're gonna get the rock hauled this week and dust coat next week. So, gravel roads.
Bill, anything?
No.
Jay? No. The only thing I got, just heads up for council, Friday at the Scott County Scale meeting. We are the host, so Kathy and I are working at PowerPoint just to give to the other cities. Interesting topic, by the way, Abe, this is one probably you should be a part of this board, but they're gonna have a committee up there talking about cybersecurity. In regards to, cities and municipalities and whatnot, as the United Health thing. Potential to cost them $1 billion just because they didn't have MFA set up for their employees, so. Cybersecurity for cities and others becoming a really big thing. What was they were talking at the exec meeting last week? If you had to guess which municipality in Minnesota is targeted the most. It's Rock County, because it's the smallest organization in the state of Minnesota, and they're targeted the most for cyber attacks. So it'll be an interesting conversation Friday morning to listen to that, yeah. Okay, nothing else, I'll take that motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Abe.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leroy. Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Anybody need to take a minute before we open the workshop? Everybody's waiting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so.
So with that, then we will transition over to our workshop. For the agenda for the space planning and concept development. Administrator Reynolds, if you want to kick us off.
Thank you, Mayor. Getting notes and everything wrapped up here in a second. As we move into the work session, so on the Government Center, we selected architect BKV Group and our construction manager, Terra Construction, and then we have WRA, which is a sub consultant under BKV Group, is a public works kind of specialist helping us with this. Phase one of this project was to kind of start off with the space needs assessment, as relying upon our consultants to help us kind of look at what's going into city halls, public works buildings in these days, and kind of guide what are some of those spaces, and looking at what do we need today, and kind of doing that 10-year forecast. So as we look at a facility, we look at a plan, we're doing some smart construction so that you don't block off potential for future growth. We build what we need today, but have a master plan for how it could grow in the future, based off of what could be our potential needs down the road. So we've been working through that process, looking at the space needs and kind of coming up with some initial thoughts. And what we have tonight is kind of, they're hiding in the.
They want to come, they can go ahead and come on in.
No, it's not, like making sure who's here.
How many people do we got?
We've
Three?
got three coming out.
Is it?
So. I will let them introduce themselves here shortly, but we've got BKV Group and Terra here putting all this together. I'm gonna let them walk through this, but really this is the first level discussion for the whole group. The building committee, Councilor Zanto and Councilor Satterback and I have been working with our team here to kind of look at what are our needs and what do we have, and trying to put it together, and hopefully possibly we'll figure out the online conversation piece so Ryan can speak. But Ryan, thanks. Ryan is available online and he is with WRA, so the public works side of the house. But this is that first conversation for the council to kind of start talking about, this is what we're looking at, this is what we've been, seeing, to kind of go over that analysis piece and get council's feedback on what do we have, what are we looking at, and some thoughts, and then we kind of keep going from here as we're looking at the project. So Mike, are you taking it? Paul, you're taking it. I'll let you guys introduce yourself instead of my trying to do it, and I am going to call up, I've got the PDF, so I'll get that shared here in just a second for you.
Should we have it turn on like them too?
Yeah, if you don't mind, the square button on the microphone down there. Thank you.
All right, while you're pulling that up, Kathy, I'll introduce myself. My name is Paul Michelle. I'm a partner with BKV Group here in town, and I've been doing government work for the better part of 25 years. We're constantly working on government projects, whether it be city halls, public works, police, fire, court, etc. Really happy to be here. I'll let introduce themselves and I'll jump in. Michael Daly with BKV Group, project manager and architectural planner.
Hello, everyone. Corey Reines with Terra Construction. I'm our estimator, and I've been with Terra for 10 years, and we've done a lot in the public works, so I have a lot of experience with buildings.
And Ryan Seymour with Whitman Record and Associates, Public Works Consultant.
Randy, glad we could get him on speaker.
Yes.
Hey, all right.
All right, so I'll have a few introductory remarks here as we kind of go through where we've come with the city thus far. I would appreciate the time the mayor, council, and staff have given us to kind of walk through the process thus far. So our agenda wise, we're going to talk through project goals, sort of the overview of our process. Really the core part of this part of the project, it's not so much design, it's really about assessing the needs of the city as it relates to, you know, what an appropriate city hall and public works project would need to be to for the city to operate effectively, not only today, but looking at long-term growth and potentially how we might phase things. The master planning is sort of that big picture, look at how a project might develop. And then we've been working closely with Terra Construction on what the project might cost over time. And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps. So on the project goals, we were brought in to help the city really to determine both the short-term and the long-term goals. We looked at 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year increments, knowing that, you know, what you need in 20 years may not be what you need today or even in 5 years. We kind of worked with the city to identify potential locations for these facilities, provide that opportunity for growth. Last thing you want to do is find a parcel of land that's too small that cannot support that long-term growth. And when you're looking at public works facilities, it really is a site-driven operation, large vehicle circulation and material storage. So it's another big driver on the appropriate size and location for a facility or complex like this. And then again, to develop a master plan to support your operational goals. We're planning for 20 years, but really these are the facilities that are expected to last for decades. We can't have a crystal ball what's going to be needed in 50 years, but we do need to plan for some growth because it is prudent use of public funds. So the process overview, you know, really the first thing we did was we had a kickoff meeting and a goal setting session once we were selected. You know, and similarly, Terra Construction was selected through a public process, and they joined the team and were part of the conversations very quickly. We did take a facility tour at Lake Como, both the City Hall and the Public Works facilities, which are relatively new and similar, comparable demographic, fit and function. And really at that point, we had some background on sort of you know, what the city was kind of looking for and needing, and from a similar standpoint. We went through a very detailed process to ascertain the space needs for both the City Hall and Public Works, leaning on sort of our national practice and understanding of what's typical in the industry, what a lot of cities needed. But first and foremost, we want to listen to the user groups and the city staff about, you know, what is the operation really going to look like for Credit River. We can't just lean on standards. We have to tailor fit this for this community as well. We then looked at the master planning and site feasibility as well as phasing, like I mentioned before, you know, biting off the entire project at first blush may not be the right move. So we wanted to look at options for phasing in the most critical aspects first, and then leaning into the project moving forward. Terra produced cost estimating. You know, part of that was looking at these potential sites and understanding if there's very site impediments that could be a problem to development and therefore drive the cost up. So we've had some very cursory geotechnical investigation done to understanding what these sites are looking like underground, and then developing those recommendations and the implementation schedule. So that's a very high level overview on the process. I would say at any point in time, if you have questions or comments as we're working through this, please by all means let us know. We want it to be a conversation first and foremost.
I have a question. So what does goal setting mean? Like what goals were you setting in that kickoff meeting? Just goals of like what you wanted to, like what you guys were gonna do, or what the city's is asking for?
big picture, sort of understanding the community and what these facilities really, how they really need to operate to serve the way the city's gonna operate. It's really a very introductory conversation
Okay,
about.
so they were they shared, even Kate shared our goals with you?
The city staff and the committee, the group did.
Okay. And then Lake Elmo is about more than twice our size. Did they have what we have today? Or were they expanding what they have?
They had a relatively recent public works facility and a relatively recent city hall. It's a little larger than what's going to be needed today, but it's something, as again, as you look at growth over time, you know, and how this community may grow. You know, a lot of the same features and functions were present there that would be expected to happen here as well.
If we decide to grow as fast as they wanted to grow.
That's true. So, which is again why we've looked at a phased approach, you know, starting with what is critical to meet the needs in the short term, and then looking as demand occurs, there is a plan to move forward.
Did Lake Elmo, when you were working with them, did they go out to their citizens and ask what they were asking, what they thought of a city hall and public works, or was that later in the process, like what we heard tonight is like phase 5?
To clarify, we didn't work with Lake Elmo. It was a community that was representative.
You just visited them.
We just went and visited them.
Thank you.
Yeah, to answer the second part of your question, though, the typically, you know, when you're just trying to figure out the feasibility of a project, community engagement is not typically encountered. When you start getting into design and you've got a better idea of what's needed, that's usually the point that you are starting to engage.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, one more.
Yes, sir.
On costs, every year that we delay a decision, what do you think the cost increases to build anything? Is it?
The experts talk about that.
Is it 10%?
Corey with Terra, typically what we see is 3 to 5% escalation on a yearly basis. So that's cost increases in labor, materials, specialty contractors. That's what we typically expect in a year. And obviously, the more years you push it back, that compounds. So 3 to 5% is what we see.
Thank you.
So this is just a summary table of the space needs that we put together, working with the city staff and the building committee. And we broke out by phase 1, 2, 3, and the phases are really set as like the 5-year increment, the 10-year increment, 20-year goal. So the government offices for the first phase is about a 6,000 square foot need. That includes operational space and support spaces, mechanical space, electrical, that kind of stuff. We'll break down in a little more detail of what each of these larger square footage pieces are as we go through the presentation. Public works, garage and shops, this is considered the kind of the heated storage spot where you might have some equipment stored in there. You might do some maintenance in there, have some shop space for different utility projects and carpentry and welding. Cold storage is considered just a kind of a cold storage metal building. Covered parking would be the same type of thing, just a non-heated covered storage area. And salt brine is where you'd be storing your granular salt and potentially making brine in the future. So that's just a summary table of the overall square footage needs that we develop working with city staff.
Can I ask you a question about salt and brine? So, and cleaning trucks and all that. So we don't have city sewer or water here. So does that contaminate things when you're draining it into the septic systems and all that stuff?
Ryan, did you catch that comment?
I did. There are pre-filtering options out there. We've actually done similar systems where we've had, you know, a wash system, and when it's outfalling, you know, may go to like an open pond area, but those can be captured and treated pretty successfully. So we really are reducing the you know, either salt, or in some cases when we're talking about like wash facilities, even the soaps as well. So
So we looked at a few different site options. We're sharing 2 of them with you tonight. Site option A and B.
Site option A, these are both very large parcels, so they allow a lot of flexibility with site layout. And a lot of future expansion needs, if there's any additional complexes the city needs far in the future. Site option A did have a little bit of topography, due to the rolling hills and so forth, so there'd be a little extra cost for this, dealing with earthwork and moving soils and possible retaining walls, et cetera. Both layouts are relatively similar, but this site did enough for septic, for wells, for stormwater treatment on site, and lots of future expansion. Site option B, this one is kind of our recommended option as we vet it out. This has a little flat topography, so it minimizes some of the earthwork costs. This also has a good opportunity to carry a new future road around the east side of the site that will allow some additional access points into the site and keep some of the public works operations possibly off of the main county road, turning off of the county road. This one still has possibility of future development on the backside, or it could be subdivided in a smaller parcel. We think there's good buffer zone to it, this site, between other land uses around it that you could do landscape buffers, berms and so forth too, to keep some of the site activity minimized.
That was a question I was gonna ask. So is that what they do? Because who wants to build a house right next to the snow plows?
Yes.
And the salt brine?
Yeah, some of these public works facilities, you'll see the buildings placed very carefully too, to kind of block operational views from adjacent properties. So you might have the back of a cold storage building that has some evergreens and stuff like that planted on it that helps act as the screen. But then you can also do berms, landscape berms, where you're just trying to level out the site. You might have extra soils. You can create berms that might be 6 to 8 feet high, and then you plant those with native plantings that help screen it. Then there's opportunities to do different types of fencing too. There's do solid fencing and wood fencing.
What about light pollution and noise pollution and all that from I live in Crestview, so I have would I see that? Like, would it be really light now and it would be loud when the snow plows are getting ready for the day and all that?
Yeah, that's a hard one to answer, because that's really depends on the environmental, you know, if it's foggy or cloudy out too, the light's gonna look brighter than it is on a clear night. But there are ordinances and design light fixtures that will keep the light trespassing on neighbors' properties, and you've got glare shields and so forth like that installed on. The noise is kind of hard to speak to. It really depends on what operations are going on there. And part of the screening process and berms will also help keep some of that noise from traveling to our basic properties.
In your experience, do these types of facilities get built in an agricultural location as opposed to more of a commercial or less rural?
Yeah, I'd say just due to the site that public works operations need, it's hard to find an urban site that's large enough. So we're working with Rosemont right now on their public works facility, brand new public works facility, and that was about a 20-acre site that was butts up to townhouses on one side, the park on the other side. Across the street, it's all residential single family houses. So it's very common that these are kind of stuck inside the neighborhood, and it's just a matter of how you design it and properly screen it. And for Rosemont, for example, we had a lot of community engagement through the process as we got further into design, and we actually had a site plan and understood how it was going to lay out, brought the neighbors in and talked to them about their concerns, and making sure one lady was concerned about her hosta garden and wanted to make sure that was protected, so they made sure there was a good fence that saved her gardens and stuff like that. This next diagram here just kind of breaks site B into the different phases of development. So the first phase estimated around 2025 is just kind of the year tossed out there, but this is constructing the 6,000 square foot city hall office and public works building, as well as the public works kind of shop space, and then some additional cold storage around the site. So the blue boxes are what you're seeing as the first phase, and the white boxes are the rest of the building for the future 20-year need. So the first 6,000 square foot for offices includes several private offices and workstations for city employees, includes some conference and collaboration spaces, staff support spaces such as restrooms, lactation space, locker spaces, break room, that sort of thing. A lot of these right now in this first phase are looked at being multi-use. So the break room might also be a muster room for public works employees. It might also be a conference room. So looking to kind of minimize the impact of phase one and be flexible in use. There was an option in this, depending on how the costs and funding works out, that you could add in the council chambers for phase one and abandon this building. But really phase one, we're looking at trying to keep this building functional as the council chambers and kind of town hall for elections. And then just bringing city office space and the public works operations over to different sections. So some of the 10,000 square feet for public works operations is kind of what I talked about. It provides a wash bay space for vehicles and equipment, support spaces for tires, signs, storage for different miscellaneous equipment. There's a 4,000 square foot covered parking for different equipment needs, an additional cold storage building for equipment and parts and pieces for different odds and ends. Ryan, did you want to speak a little bit of some of the initial public works needs for those outbuildings and so forth?
Sure. So obviously the covered parking is exactly that. So this is providing a space for new equipment that will be coming in for the support of maintenance operations throughout the county or through the city. And then the cold storage building is really just, it's exactly that. It's a building that is non-heated. It's going to be storing things like plows, potentially grass seed, all those things that don't need to be in a heated environment, but should be protected to increase the longevity of it or to protect it from rodents and such as that. So inside the public works operation itself is going to be heated storage areas. Those are going to be areas that are more sensitive to the environment. In those cases, it may be things like plow trucks that would be maybe pre-staged or equipment that's going to be staged maybe the night before for some other operation, some minor vehicle maintenance. We're talking minimal things like just replacing a tire or something along those lines, sign storage, smaller scale operations, but things that need to be kept within a heated environment.
I want to throw in just a couple of comments on that one too. As you look at this, so the heated environment, this 5-year marker, like as we start doing, looking at possible water coming over, and you have water meters that you're going to have to be installing and stuff, and those need to be kept in that heated type environment as we're putting those out and getting those going. So just kind of one of those other pieces. And then I know you said the lactation room, and I heard the thought process is going and people going, why do we need those? And unfortunately, there's certain requirements of buildings and constructions and ADA requirements that's included in some of those support spaces that once we start building this and you're doing this, we don't have the options on some things like a lactation room.
Correct.
That is a space that has to be included in some way, shape, or form within the building. So
I thought there was some type of technical thing. I wasn't even
Nope.
Not a technical, not technical like that. But it's just, it's knowing that it's not trying to be overdoing what we're doing, but it's knowing those types of things with ADA requirements and so forth that have to go into the building. And ADA requirements on other things that kind of go into this planning process. So I just wanted to throw those out there to provide some insight into those.
And if I could throw one more thing in there too. The thought was, right, keep this building as is, use it for things of this nature. Build the office spaces to basically take the 20 years for the public works office space that's needed and put the city hall or the city offices in there. And then as that grows, if and when that grows, then the city hall would be an addition onto that building. So that was kind of the thought process. I'm like, give enough city hall
Where would it
space.
go? Where would that go?
Either white.
Well, it's the
Well,
white.
What's the white?
And again,
And that's
remember, Bill, this is
very-
conceptual,
Conceptual.
right?
Just,
It's just showing the space.
Full blocks of space.
Yeah. That's the block exercise.
so build it so that public works can fit in there as city expands.
Go on to phase two.
So phase two, looking out to 2035 approximately, this brings in additional multi-purpose kind of meeting space. It could be a community room, training room / council chamber space. So it would allow you the opportunity to abandon this building and sell it. That would bring in need for additional public restrooms to support that large assembly space. With that, you would want to bring over some electrical storage. That also includes 4 additional offices, additional workstation for future employees. And there's additional conference room to support the staff needs there, and a dedicated break area then for City Hall. As the Public Works Department grows, they kind of need their own break and muster space. Then City Hall would have a small kind of break area for their own use. This also would bring in, since public works operations would be increasing, there would be a need for additional locker space for public works staff to store their gear and personal items. So that would be within that 5,000 square feet. For public works spaces specific, there would be approximately 11,000 square foot addition to the heated storage area, which would include a high-speed water filling. This would bring in your larger maintenance space where you could do maintenance on some of your plows and other trucks and so forth. This would bring over all of your water department operation areas for doing work on meters and that sort of thing.
When you say, what does that mean, meters?
Water meters themselves, yeah.
When you have sewer, you have water.
Yeah, for the municipal water and sewer that we're talking about, bringing over.
Thank you.
Um,
It keeps going.
And then with this phase two is looking at having city's own fueling space, so it'll be a fuel island. And then at this point, it's constructing the salt shed and brine building. So the city can buy and store their own salt and use their own brine. Great.
Can I ask you a question? Are most city public works, they have their own fuel? Have
They
their own
do.
operations. They don't go to the gas station.
Most of those trucks really can't even access a standard fuel station at that point. So they're going to be larger trucks. You know, they're going to be 75 to 100, 120 gallon tanks in many cases. So they're really not designed to really access a public fuel station. So it's very routine to have your own fuel station at that point.
About a 12-foot plow with the wing on the side.
Going to mix stuff.
Going through quick trip underneath the canopy. Hopefully the box is down so you don't take the canopy off.
Yeah.
Ryan, for the fuel station.
Mhm.
I work at some of this stuff, but they do above ground, fuel tanks with the, containment around it instead of
Yeah.
burying stuff in the ground.
Yeah, I would recommend the same. We don't really want to go underground unless there's a real reason to be underground to save space. It's a whole lot easier to manage an above ground system.
Leak detection is a lot different.
Yeah.
Okay.
And phase three, this is your 20-year build out, so addressing all your operational needs for City Hall and Public Works departments, full 20-year piece. So this just brings in the additional 2,000 square feet to the city offices, which brings a dedicated council chambers then at that point. So you'd have your community multi-purpose room, And then it becomes a chamber space, support spaces for AV and video production and so forth. To bring additional office space and larger muster room and dedicated public works workroom area, some additional staff restrooms and larger locker space for public works staff as that department continues to grow. Then there's a small addition to cold storage then for additional equipment and plows and graders and that sort of thing. So they're about 1,000 square feet for a cold storage addition, and then 2,500 square feet for additional covered parking. Fun job.
So we at Terra, we pride ourselves on having knowledge of the industry. And so what you'll see here is a breakdown of schematic design buildings. So what BKV has put together is a schematic design of the intent behind what needs to happen in each of these phases. And what we've done is we've used our expertise in the current market, in the bidding markets, the estimating markets with our subcontract partners. And we've utilized those unit square foot prices to be able to build out these costs for each of those buildings associated with each phase. So what you'll see is each line item represents a different building, and that building corresponds with that table that you guys had seen on previous slides. Could you go back to that really quick, Kathy, just to show that one right there? So each building that is on this table has a square footage represented on what your needs are for that building for future. So if you go back to the cost estimate, this first budget, probably hard for you guys to see, but for site, we priced out site work option B as a more cost-effective opportunity. And that number is 1.5 million, rounded down, but 1.55 million. What I go another decimal place.
What was site A?
Site A, actually, Kathy, we'll get to that if we can.
Okay.
I didn't see it.
So there's additional assumptions that we've made on the phase 3 that kind of spell out other options that we've looked at. I believe that it's 1.3 million additional to be able to get to site. But within site option B.
So the cost of the site work for site A was 1.2.
No,
More
additional. More.
So you'd be at
Right, so-
2.7 million
Almost 3 million just for site work.
just
And
for site work.
And that's because the hill.
Because of the hill. So basically what you try to do is you try to get a level grade for your public works. And to be able to export all that fill or even excavate all that fill, you've got a lot of man hours, you've got a lot of equipment hours, and you're gonna have to be able to bench that earth, or you're gonna have to build retaining walls. So that's why we provided that on the third slide as just an additional consideration. But we priced out option B as the more cost-effective option. We know the cost is an important part for you guys and for the council. And so what we've tried to do is we've tried to use our expertise for each building just to be able to present a market price. So first line item is going to be your site work, option B, 1.55 million. Your government building, so that's your offices, that's that 6,000 square foot building. That's at 1.36 million. Your government building, so the garage and shops at 10,000 square foot building. That's at 2 million. Garage and shop equipment allowance will be included a line item in here for equipment that you guys would be purchasing to be able to live in those shops. We've got that's at 244,000. Cold storage building, that's that 4,000 square foot covered parking. Or the cold storage, that's at 48,000, 480,000. And then your covered parking, similar building, but that's at 579,000. Grand total of all those buildings comes to $6.24 million. And then you've got architectural and engineering design fees, permits and insurance, our fee, conceptual design contingency. That 15% contingency is relatively construction standard with the design phase. So as that number is high right now, But as we start developing and adding finishes, that goes away as those plans continue to get developed. And then you have that 5% escalation, right now, just assuming construction 2025. And then that estimate total comes to like 8.16 million. I know that's a big number, but we feel like these numbers are well supported for what has been presented on that table previously. And we're just trying to give you guys a good idea of what this could cost.
Can I ask you to make one clarification or just one point?
Yep.
As we did this, I think the kind of the budget number that you're looking at, and you're using with these is kind of looking at mid-level finishes for the building. We're not looking at top level finishes. We're kind of looking at that mid-level construction building finishes.
Correct. Yep, so it's nothing extravagant. You're not getting marble, you're not getting expensive carpet. It is mid-level finishes. And even in the garage and shops, you're getting sealed concrete and low finish. None of this is but that just yeah, as of right now, no.
Does any of this, this does not include anything inside the buildings, furniture?
So what you'll see on the last line item, so you've got that $8.16 million estimate total. Below, you're gonna have other soft costs. So you're gonna have your legal fees, your surveys, geotechnical, your special inspections, commissioning. That's gonna also include your owner furnished furniture. Okay. And technology as well. So that's just it's a baseline cost that we like to include in there. So that you've got an all-in number of $9.12 million.
And all this is competitively bidded out.
Correct.
All the way. And they know that we're a government.
Right.
Do we get recent bids? Or do they know that they can pad their things because we're government and no?
No, what we do is we go out to the public and we advertise this project, and you get subcontractors who are competitively bidding this. So they know that they want the project, they're not gonna pad their number. They want to be able to be the low number and competitively get the project.
How many bidders do you think we get?
First
place.
Well,
a relatively small size project.
Right, I would say anything between 100 and 150 bidders.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's divided by.
But that's all the stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Divided by bid package, so.
Yep.
Would you say 3 or 4 per bid package?
I would say so. I'd say we would probably have, on the last project that we bid out, we had 22 bid package, distinctive bid packages. So what we do is we package it up and we say bid category 2A, demolition. So we would set a scope, we would reference the specs, we would reference the drawings, and then we would say, here is your scope of work, so that it's really simplified for the contractors to be able to read through the documents. They're not looking through all 1,000 pages of documents. They're looking for their scope. Now it is their responsibility to still look through the documents, but we try and expedite that so that they know exactly what they're looking for this project, so that we get more bidders.
And if we get one bidder for a specific item, do we then just change the scope?
Or we can rebid it. Yep. Absolutely.
I heard last week that our city doesn't do a good job. A lot of times we get a project that's very small, so we only get one bid. And I've been told we need to go out and scope it stuff. So
Well, we at Terra, we have a good strategy on advertising for bids. I know BKV's got good advertisement as well. Got a large vendor list of subcontractors in every division that we would go up.
Okay, that's one of the benefits of having a construction manager is that they have ability to market projects to a lot of their usuals. I think the usual trusted vendor, so he can build it as well as involving local trades, and drumming up support for local business as well.
Any other questions?
Okay, Stu.
So this is phase 2, again, kind of a similar layout. Again, also based off of that spreadsheet that BKV had provided for square footages for each building. The only changes here are site work option B. This is where the fuel island and then expanding the site paving, so additional asphalt for truck traffic comes in. So that's why you'll see an additional cost for site option B. But again, kind of similar building, but just adding on. Phase two, so. Oh, gotcha. Got it. So again, line item by line item, government building. So this is the addition to kind of your offices portion of your public works building. That's 1.5 million for those of you who can't see it. The garage and shop addition. So that's adding on to your public works, more multi-bay garages. So that's 2 million. Garage and shops, water department and heated parking. So that's a add of 300,000 for phase two, just expanding that heated area for those water meters. Salt and brine structure, that's another 180,000. And then addition to the cold storage, 24,000, and then addition to your covered parking is 138,000. The grand total of construction at 5.13 million for phase two. Adding in all the fees, permits, insurance, contingency, and escalation, we're at 9.7 million. Now, the reason why I want to draw your attention to the escalation, that's where that compounding interest comes in. So this is slated for construction 2035. That's 10 years from next year. And with 3 to 5% project escalation, construction costs being increased on a yearly basis, you have to compound that percentage. So.
So question on the government building offices, it looks like it's more costly than 35, and inflation is down below on that $3.3 million number.
Correct.
Why is the offices higher costs?
So that is where you're getting a little bit higher level finishes, because you're adding in the public areas, you're adding in the council chambers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that the vision there was that number was based off, the little bit higher level, because a lot of that expansion is the council chambers, and the public restrooms and so forth. So the public spaces we, kind of envisioned here as being a little bit higher level than basically the staff area.
All right. Good. Questions? Okay. And then phase three, so no costs for the site improvements. You've got an addition on the government building offices of 434,000. Covered parking addition is 352,000. For a total of 787. And fees, permits, contingency, and then escalation. Again, I just want to point to that. It's a big number, 172%, but it is compounded. So you're 20 years out, you're compounding 3 to 5% on a yearly basis, and that's why you get up to 2.3 million. So, and then below, you'll see additional cost consideration. So I talked about the 1.2, almost $1.3 million add for site option A, if you were to go with that option. And then we've also just we've broken out kind of the 2,300 square foot city administration support, council chambers, election and restrooms. So those are higher level finishes that we added in phase two. If you were to add those into phase one, it'd be an add of $976,000, but you're also getting a deduct from phase two of $1.42 million. So I just wanted to represent that as when you do work earlier, you're saving on possible escalation costs. So any questions on phase three? No.
So coming into next steps, really what this was our first presentation. There's certainly options to discuss and refine, but really one of the things that the city council is going to have to do is going to have to approve, the space needs and the phasing approach, because that's going to help set the capital improvement project budget moving forward. Determining preferred site location, do you want the more cost effective site? Do you want the one that's a little more expensive for other reasons? And really, the city's gonna have to start working with financial advisor, looking at different funding options, how to best implement these projects as part of capital improvement plan. And then really start looking at how are these projects are going to be planned and executed in the future. This is a point where we mentioned also community engagement and input gathering early in the process during design. Is something that needs to happen. You could do it before design starts, and then start the design process and test some of the things that you hear from the community. See what things can be implemented cost effectively, what makes sense for the project. But 5 and 6 almost go hand in hand. Authorizing the next phase of design and planning would be one of your next steps as well when you're ready to move a project. Right now, the really focus of this is to help you understand feasibility of the project, what your options are for how you might implement it over time, basically the feasibility, how big and how much. So that's really sums up the process thus far, really the limitation of our engagement, pending any future work being authorized by council.
Okay. Building committee members, any additional comments to that?
Yeah, I've got some. I think it's really important for all of us. When I ran, I was vehemently opposed because I love this building. I think it's fantastic. And it's us.
For another 10 years.
What's that?
We're gonna.
Yeah. I think we as a community have to realize what's ahead of us, right? And that was something I didn't realize. We have some needs ahead of us that are requiring us to make some steps. We have a contractor that is no longer going to be plowing for us.
At some point.
So
Soon, probably.
yeah, in the not too distant future. So that begs the question, can we just go hire another contractor? It's very difficult as we start talking 55 miles of road, a paved road and 12 miles of gravel roads. No one's really got equipment. We're starting to talk about landscaping companies that can't do that, right? So there is a need to do it. Now we just have to figure out how to do it well, right? And that's one of the things that, as we were talking throughout the time with Tara and BKV and the committee, how do we do it so we only bite off of what we really need? Do I think we're at there? No, we have things we can massage and start to work with, but to get these ideas out there, that was the first goal, right? So by no means do I want to make anyone feel like that's it, right? This is a starting point. Now let's start sifting through it, getting some feedback and whatnot from council, getting some clarifications out there. So I just want to put out there, I think we need to keep helping the community understand why we're doing these projects, not just because we have a bunch of money sitting around that's coming from all of our pockets, but what do we need to do? So
perfect. Jay, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, we have 2 large sewer pipes and a water pipe essentially at our border, which is when that moves across, we effectively become a public works department and have to have water service, water meters, being able to maintain the water system that goes in. That's not something that we can hire out. We also are going to have lift stations and sewer maintenance, fire hydrants. We're gonna have water, and we don't have it now at all. We have to, it won't fit in this building. And we will have to have, a lot of that is going to have to be under a roof. And I think that's part of, we broke this phasing out a little bit so that we could see, because we don't need it today. But by the time we get to building it, it actually could be here. And we have to have the ability to move into that. We don't need to pay for it today, but we do need to have the ability to build it very quickly or move these phases up that we have if we need to. But there, I think from what we figured out, it looks about right on the phasing. And part of that, I personally, I don't want to spend this much money as it is, but if we broke this thing down so that we have a place to wash trucks, we have a place to store them. The plows, as we start adding plows, And, you know, we can say we've got 55 miles of road today, but we just approved another addition that's gonna have more miles. And, you know, we're gonna need more trucks as we go along, but as we bring these things in, we need a place to put it. You can't just park in an unheated building in snowplow and expect to use it at 20 below. Because it's got hydraulic lines, it's got everything else that needs to be warmed up, and so with that, we're giving kind of you see how things grow, that's where we're trying to, if we can wash and heat a couple trucks, we move them off into a different place. You know, we're looking at, we have election needs for space, and that's for keeping this building alive for now. Serves as, it does this part, and it does our elections. We can put we talked about putting some of the offices, city offices, into that public works portion of it for now, and then we can add inbuilt later as the need arises. So I think that along with some financing, and then the only other thing I would add, now that we've seen the full escalation costs and everything else, is we do have to really look at that. We don't want to overbuild, but there's millions of dollars in this estimate. It's purely because we're waiting. Now, are we paying less with the financing for interest for building something we don't need today? Or, we do have to look at that. We should probably think on talking to that. And, if there are other options, we should hear those too. Talk about this.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Abe. I appreciate you guys doing the work on the committee, sorting this out. I guess, speaking of that other options, I mentioned to you earlier, Jay, just a thought of something maybe we should take a look at as well is, think of the needs, right? So this space, clearly for running day-to-day offices, don't too many people use the bathroom today. We'll have to pump the holding tank tomorrow because we don't have a septic here. Election days, how many council meetings now are we gonna have to move this year because of pre-voting and all that? Sharing the election space is tough. Just a thought I was having as I was looking at the presentation. Can we look at the option of, do we build the city hall building, call it, whatever time period we're gonna bond for, so it outlives the bond, lease space in the city for public works. So, we have, Nate Krieger has building, he has buildings that he leases out up there that are sufficient size to get a public works started. You could keep 4 snowplow trucks in one of those units. Actually, I talked to him today, he's gonna, next couple of days, he's gonna turn in a request for addition to that building, so we'll have more units open. But could we build city hall building first as the first phase, lease space for public works for a period of time on a sufficient piece of property where we could add a public works building at some time in the future? Just another thought process of how that would look as another option. Other than that, so the other kind of questions I guess I would like to clarify, steps taken to this point. So Kathy, can we just walk through and remind me the timeline? So last year at budget time and during the budget process and during our, truth and taxation here, we talked about budgeting for this process that we're going through today. Bringing on the consultants to talk about the space needs analysis, talked about, having a construction manager start building all those things and pricing. We then earlier this year at a council meeting, agreed to hire 3 different times. I think we did 3 different separate council meetings. We hired each of these companies, right?
Correct. We did budget, all through the budget process. We talked about the government center, money for this year for this part of the process and for looking at land purchases, and then a dollar figure in the out years. That was an estimate, waiting for this process to give us some more defined information. We also had in those discussions, public works equipment, staffing, and kind of forecasting of all of that throughout the budget process and those budget discussions. And then, yes, we went through the process to authorize release for both of requests for proposals for the architect engineer firm and then for the construction manager and approvals of those selections.
Yep.
And the building committee was approved to help with this process and to get it all going.
Perfect. And then site selection, I think, can we just talk about that for a moment? Because what we're seeing today is 2 sites. I think we talk about how did we get to those sites? And, what other considerations were taken in the site selection process?
Sure, we're at the 2 sites now. We've gone through, we had, I guess, just kind of walking from now backwards. We had one other site that we had an option C that we were actively working on as well. And that property owner, as we were actively working on it and looking to do the soil borings, so we could start doing the further analysis and learn more about what the cost to construct on each of these sites is going to look like. As we start doing the analysis of the sites, that owner withdrew from consideration of it. We had another property owner that we were.
Sorry to interrupt. That property was in, along 21.
It was along, yes, along 21. All residential because we do not have commercial or industrial zone properties other than the properties that are currently already occupied and being utilized for commercial or industrial purposes. Everything else in the city is currently zoned residential. So.
Yeah. Well,
So
same.
so we had, that property that pulled out, we had another smaller parcel that we were looking at that, the owner was in discussions with us, but the sizing and spacing and so forth on that was not conducive and would not work to fit really as we look at master planning out. So it was not, did not meet the needs as we looked at that one. And then we had a couple others that we tried to reach out to property owners on to discuss potential locations, and they did not respond back to our inquiries.
So we came down to what,
So-
we have 2 willing property owners that were with sufficient properties, right? So. Wasn't planning on it tonight. Let's see how much time we have at the end here. Otherwise, more than happy to receive written comments following as well, so.
How hard do we go after?
So Kathy, please, can we keep going?
How hard do we go after other sites? I mean, we knew that the guy over there probably wanted to sell, but did we you said that we sent something out to somebody, did he respond? Why did we call them? I mean, why would we not call?
One is finding phone numbers for some of the individuals. They're not residents. They own the land here, in different cases, in different situations. Trying to get the inquiries out there. Some of them, we said to are actively occupied. Versus the vacant land that we kind of ended up with. So like I said, we've gone through, I think my list is 5 or 6 different properties that we've looked at and had inquiries and talked to people or attempted to talk to people on.
Bill, real quick, Chris and I had looked at properties probably for the last 4 years. And
nobody wants to sell.
No. So we never discussed any money with anyone. We just approached them and, hey,
You're interested in
potential
talking.
spot, would you want to talk? Couple of them, we went back second time, but
One of them, we even kind of drew a little
Yeah.
concept on at one point. And
And
thought
then
that was gonna be a great spot until they changed their mind.
their kids decided not to let them do it, so. Anyhow,
How big of a parcel do we need for the design? 20 acres or? Consider.
Right, you recall the
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
It's
you recall.
not on.
As Ryan, the question was, how much space do we need? How much, land? I think the smallest parcel is that, the smaller parcel is at about 19 acres, the larger parcel,
It's
just
26.
is 26, is what we're looking at.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was your question.
We need
The question
28,
was,
it
what
sounds
do we
like we
really-
need 20 acres to do all of this. No?
I don't
We
think we need. to.
Well, now remember, looking at the concept pictures, right? There's no drain fields or,
We
or.
need that for that, right? I'm
Right,
just
so,
wondering how.
yeah,
we-
so I'm just saying, if you look at the concept drawing, right, so.
Yep.
Comparatively, you see where the building is in there, and then you have the excess space up on the north side of it. Likely you'd have to slide this over, because you'd need some, screening,
Yep.
berming on, around the sides of it, and then room for
Mhm.
drain fields and well. Right, so, or, again, if there's a little bit of stormwater ponding built in there, I don't know if that's sufficient size or not. So it's hard, Bill, right, because, looking at.
I was
the
just trying to get an
opportunity for
idea,
expansions.
20 to 30.
Yeah,
And
And.
if I could add, that with that. This is for long term. It's real hard to go back and acquire something afterwards. 40 years, 50 years from now, when we figure out we need more space. When you already have it, when it can serve a different purpose, it can also be a park until at the time that you need it. There's things that you can do with that land. Or not do with that land but the big thing is. Leave the future an ability to use it, to utilize it with their money. We don't have to build anything on it, but as long as it's there and big enough for the future.
Property around it, though, there's still a lot of acreage around that, right? That farm. Are developers even gonna wanna try and sell $800 to $1 million homes when you're right next to the Public Works Department? I mean, I always envision that farmland eventually have multi-million-dollar homes like the ones that are right next to that farmland today, and it seems to me like we have to consider that too, by putting it there. And I really like the idea of putting it all on 185th Street. But it's just,
unfortunately, it'd be nicer if there's a willing seller up there.
well, let's get a decent real estate rep to get them to want to sell. I mean, we hire someone that knows how to sell land or buy land. Or did we do it ourselves? I mean, I don't know, when we say, we send out feelers, but then we don't like follow up with feelers. I mean,
The key, we have hired an agent to assist us with negotiating purchases, right? The moment they are working on appraisals for the two properties to get in appraisals, so we can then look at those appraisals and start having discussions with them about potential purchase prices. And moving forward on that process. So that is something that council authorized a couple meetings ago, I believe it was. I'm trying to remember when exactly it was, but so we do have that.
well, I know that
ongoing.
we're only talking about 2 lots now. We're not talking about, I'm talking about at the beginning of the process, going out and finding more than just the 2 lots we have. That's what I was saying. I understand what you said. We have talked about that.
Do we have any kind of a wild idea what this is gonna cost per acre for these parcels? Besides the 9 million?
Why we're working on having an appraisal done right now.
I understand that, but I mean, we have other property that's for sale for 50 to 75,000 an acre. So I'm just.
But we have 600,000 in the budget.
Kind of. And that's what we earmarked the ARPA funding for, yes.
Yeah. Well, I thought we had 600, I thought that was.
That's what what we identified, 614.
Yeah.
We have 800,000 in the budget for this year, which was for the design work that we're in and getting that started, and then property acquisition is really what we were looking at. Move design on forward, that's fine, but we put $800,000 in the budget this year for this process, which included the land acquisition.
But 614,000 of that is ARPA.
Yes. Yep.
By about 6 years. Yeah. Give me 5-6 years.
Okay,
So
other
the-
comments,
Yeah, I have
questions?
another question, the building committee, have you, kind of estimated a ballpark, like how much it would cost the residents if we did a 20-year bond for $9 million and like what that would be to property tax bills? No. Is that something we can do, just a ballpark, so people can understand what it would cost on their tax bills? It's a good
That-
idea.
That's kind of in those next phases of what we do. Tonight was this first initial conversation to get feedback on the phasing, the space needs analysis, what we're looking at there. And kind of in those next steps and future conversations will be more of that financial piece. If tonight's discussions kind of move this, and say we want to look at this a little bit differently, then we want to kind of start working that before we go too far and dive into finances of it. So this is kind of that, like I said, that first level discussion that we can have to look at it. So what do we think about the phasing that we're talking about, that space needs? The buildings, what are we looking at?
We have an open house for the community to weigh in before we do the down to phase 5, just to get their opinions. We heard one gentleman tonight, but can we have an open house and just ask that, put some of these maps up or some of the documents up, do it over at the park over there. I'd like that. I'd also like the questions answered too. Hopefully we can do that too. Some of them we answered. I think probably most of them we answered.
Yeah.
Not all of it, but some. So can we, I would like that. That'd be my request.
I got one. So we got, as of today, we got 56 years out of this building. We built 68. And probably in 2010, everybody complained about the ugly green building that they had to come to. So we spent $20,000 and reskinned the building. And,
Then what was it? We spent $30,000 completely redoing the inside of it.
inside we had mold.
Because we had mold in the
And we did
walls,
the floor.
the floor, yeah,
So,
probably 2013,
yeah,
14.
went back at, when it was first built, that was the only meeting area over there, and we had a road grader and a snowplow drove in here. So I hope the next one will get 56 out of it, tell you that.
Yeah,
But we do need to
do something.
we just can't keep putting up partitions and cubicles.
I think that would be, honestly, I think that, and maybe we should have had that for this tonight. Would have been great to have 2 or 3 slides on existing conditions and existing needs and why this facility isn't sufficient for going forward in the future. I think that would be a great couple of slides to work on for the next time we do any type of presentation on this. I think that's what's really missing tonight.
And I think that needs to be front and center on the website too, right? Very
Agreed.
visible, very easy.
And quite honestly, that could be something we could stand up in between now and then as a page dedicated to this on the website. And build out the needs, right? Really detail of. Again, 56 years in the pole shed that probably 56 years ago, probably 1968.
Building.
Probably cost $10,000 or $15,000 to build at that time.
No, probably about 3,500.
35,
That's my dad.
right? So again, to the escalation of costs over time, right? Of thinking of what the difference between now and just 20 years is. But
If we do something like that, can we get like a 10-year and a 15-year cost of what it's gonna cost the taxpayers?
yeah, again, I think as Kathy's talked about before, those are the next steps in the process. Once you get to agreement on phasing and stuff like that, then you start building out the cost scheduling and looking at, okay, is this something that you're gonna do in a 10-year bond, a 20-year bond? No, you clearly don't want your bond to outrun the facility, right? It's gotta, the building has to outrun the bond. For sure, because you don't want to be paying on something and then bond again to add on to it, right? So you gotta be careful about that. Just it's like threading that needle on there, right? Is what's the size, the cost, and fulfilling the needs, right? That's why, you know, again, if, you know, any other kind of, you know, solutions of or options, like I say, you know, can we build just a city hall and lease for public works for a time? Does that make sense? Or
I think if you're gonna do it, do the.
well, again, Leroy, again, you're right, options on the table to look at, right? So that we can, you know, again, thread the needle for the right piece.
And maybe we come back with the, just wanna make a note that none of the photos of this.
Yeah.
are
Point of-
actually representative of what we're looking
A
at.
point of just clarification, the next time we do a presentation, probably not the Taj Mahal photos in the presentation.
That's Scott County, they can afford that.
I mean, I asked the tour that we had, Lake Elmo, I had driven by the building it several times, and I asked.
The Public Works building.
To go see the Public Works building, because it's actually, it's quite pleasing, it's a big barn, it looks like a big barn, big red barn. And I was
Can you
curious to
imagine what
see.
it costs to heat all that extra space up
Well,
upstairs?
yes and no, but I mean, you have to have, you have to have an open area, a large enough open
Oh, yeah.
area in the loft and everything else for the large
Yeah.
trucks over there.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
was curious to see what was in it and how they laid it out. And we had a really, really good tour. I also just looking at the building construction methods, which will really make a difference in what we spend or choose to spend on these things. You know, that was a metal building with a masonry base. And as part of it was brand new, they had just added onto it. But the other parts, a significant portion of it was 16 years old, and it really looked like it had weathered well.
Mhm.
That type, you know, that was something that I was kind of looking at too. So, if people wanted to go look at it, it's in Lake Elmo, it's just off of 694.
It's on 36.
14.
36, isn't it? Because the
No.
main highway and the
No,
south.
County, I
right?
think it's county 14.
Yeah.
Or 14. Yeah, okay, yeah, yep.
Yeah, it's just right on the border of Oakdale and Lake Elmo.
Mm-hmm.
We did.
What'd you say?
I said, well, the inside looked good, cause.
Oh, you did the
She
inside?
that.
That's good.
Nice.
Does the property owner over there, he or she understands that we're only buying that parcel and he's gonna have to do something with the rest?
Yeah, one of the things that we've been talked about is leasing back the unused space for them to continue farming.
Yeah, the other thing too, think about if we did build the whole city hall in one shot. We could sell this place and that would contribute to the,
I just don't see them. You're not gonna get much for anything here.
never know.
Maybe 300, and we're putting 900 in for over there.
Yeah,
So then we're,
otherwise you could also use it for extra storage space too. Mhm.
I mean, if you continue to grow, you will potentially need more space outside of.
Well, you think about election wise, you know, they recommend no more than 2,000 people per precinct. So we just split to 2 precincts. We're already over 2,000 in each of the precincts.
We really almost need 30.
But, well, not yet, but but again, you could go by the recommendation of 2,000 per precinct. It's, well, we haven't been through a presidential election since we've had 2.
2020 was really, we had lines.
I know, I stood at the county road. Yeah, I know, it wasn't cold and it didn't rain.
What are we doing tonight? What do you?
I don't think we have any action tonight, do we? Any action?
There's no real action. I mean, this is work session environment, we're just discussing, but it's,
I have a request. Sorry.
this is what we, you know, kind of where we've got to at this point. It's what feedback, I know the finance side, but are we wanting to look at, I mean, the phasing, does that look right? Do we think that is right? Do we want to look at a different alternative or something else? Because we think we're on the right track here with the phasing that we presented as, you know, phase 1, 2, and 3, then we can start putting together some of those finance pieces and start looking at that you know, the potential to sell it versus, you know, this building versus keeping it and using it. We've talked about putting together some financials of, okay, what could potential purchase, you know, sale price be? What's the, you know, what's the maintenance cost of maintaining this building for another 10 years?
Mhm.
And the maintenance and utilities and all those pieces, and we can start to build up some of that for further considerations. We can talk about the conditions, the needs. We can put all that together, and that's easy. I could just talk in the last 2 weeks. I've had multiple meetings that I've scheduled, and then I've told the people on the other side that we need to have this meeting. Can we come to your place? Because I can't post a meeting here because there's no place to really post a meeting and still have people working. And the public, the ability for the public to come in. So those are things that we can, you know, we can put all that together, but I guess for tonight, it's what are our thoughts on this so that we can then take those next steps and start putting together some more of this stuff and getting that ready so that, you know, we go out to, as we talked about, going out for the, you know, community input and getting some of theirs. Let's have some more of this information put together. But is this direction that we want to go and put that together?
So if I could make a suggestion, we have a lot of, you know, analysis that was done. I think it would be super helpful to get that to the whole group and to be able to talk through that. So, you know, as we start talking about, we need offices versus workstations, you know, what size of conference rooms, right? So we could really look at that 6,000 square feet of the government offices and start to say, is it 5,500? Is it 7,000? Is it, can we squeak out 3,000? You know, and then we could start to massage that a lot more. I think that would be a great thing for, I know Bill, you'd like to see that, right? So let's get down to the nitty gritty a little bit more to be able to say, okay, that number is very large. So how do we whittle that thing down? How do we get, I mean, the initial thought was not necessarily to get to a number that's exactly what we're gonna do, but let's just start throwing it around. And see what's out there.
Yeah, you gotta start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And start building from there.
So I think getting some of those details out there of, okay, here's what we think these offices look like. Maybe that's getting a little bit further down the road, but then being able to get that in front of the public and be able to have those types of discussions, I think that's what they get along with the financing. To be able to say, okay, this is kind of what we're thinking, and be able to have a dialogue.
Sure. So you're thinking that, so again, so you wanted to see some of that detail sent out?
I've seen it.
Yeah, you and
I've
Jay,
seen it.
you and
We've
Jay have
both
seen it.
We've talked it back and
Right.
forth, you know, in the meetings, but you three haven't.
Right.
And so we're really kind of more interested in finding out where you're at, what you guys think, are, I mean, are we on the right path?
So why don't we do this then? Why don't we say, let's distribute that information. And then, you know, then let's have, here's the action items that we need to move to the next steps so that we can talk through those action items and be ready to answer those maybe at the next council meeting. Or depending on what's on the agenda already, but you know, the next, I know, I was just thinking about that.
Do we want to just schedule a workshop?
Well, but if we want to get to a
from
spot where
council.
we want to make
Yeah.
actually decisions, it needs to be in a regular council meeting,
I got you. Okay.
right? So,
Yeah, wouldn't it be good for the five of us to talk through some of this?
In a workshop.
In a
we
workshop?
can do that
Yeah.
again too.
Before the next meeting?
Then we can shorten up whatever happens at the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's public, everybody can.
absolutely.
Listen.
I'd like to hear what the community has to say too.
So-
I'd like to do it sooner than later. I don't want to do it in phase 5.
Well, maybe we have a more public hearing in front of the workshop, get some of the early feedback, right?
Yes.
I'm sure many people sitting on here have all kinds of things that are rattling in their minds right now after seeing this.
Yep.
Can we should get some initial feedback?
Is it possible, do we think we have maybe 15 minutes to listen to public comment here tonight?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we go till quarter to 9, so 13 minutes.
Yeah,
Kathy will take
just
it
like
about 10.
2 minutes.
We'll give her, no, we're gonna cut Kathy off, so. Everybody else can talk more, but give her the timer. Kathy, I'm gonna ask you to step to, you gotta get up to the
Oh, yeah,
podium,
get
turn the
big
microphone
time,
on.
Kathy.
I think we're batteries are failing tonight, so talk loud, Kathy.
All the formalities, that's on 175.
It's on.
Lake Boulevard.
Double speed.
So. This has been really interesting information, but it just feels to me like you're putting the cart before the horse here. You've made. You've got these site plans and you've got these sites, but you have nowhere near knowing what you're willing to pay these people. So I personally know landowners that are asking, that you're talking with, that, are considering working with you, but you can't even give them a price. Like, what are you budgeting for the land? I mean, two landowners turned you down because you didn't offer them enough. So you're gonna need more money for the land. So to plan all this stuff with all these consultants, when you don't even have any kind of an even number to give these landowners, it just doesn't make sense to me. One of the landowners asked the person who contacted them about selling, well, what do you give me for it? Well, what do they didn't even have a ballpark number to give it. So what, don't you think you need to work on that first? Like, know that you've got the money for the land and can pay for it, what people want, because what you have set aside for the land is not enough for what you want. I'm sure you realize that. It's not even close to enough. So, that is something you need to seriously think about. Can we even afford this land? Have we budgeted for it before we are paying all these consultants to do all this work? You don't even know if you're gonna get the land. You're planning all these buildings on this land. You don't even know if you're gonna get it, and there's a good chance you might not. So that's it. That's all I have.
Can I make it I'd like to respond, actually.
ahead.
Okay.
Because I think it's a valid question, right? We have to remember this is very much space needs, right? And we were in the process of saying, what do we need for space? Not necessarily where are we gonna do it? And during the process, we were saying, okay, here's some potentials, right? And that's where we were starting to get some of the negotiation and some of the understanding around that. So we are so early in the process.
Because I know you were specifically talking to the man, what
You need to come up to the podium. That's the price to speak. He's got to come to the microphone. So you got to remember, we are live streaming it. So if they can't hear you.
In regards to the roads too, I mean, the roads can't handle when we have a vote here. So how are we gonna handle the construction and all of the cars that are gonna be coming and going from the city site there? I don't know that I see that happening. I'm just wondering if people are looking at the whole picture there.
So whenever we do, and just like when a development happens, right, there's traffic studies and all that are part of all of that. So again, those are later steps in the process. No, Vern, you can't.
30 seconds.
I was under this assumption or understanding that there was some money, some government money, COVID money or something. And it has to be spent by the end of this year.
Right.
Correct? And you can spend it for something else.
So no, we had to dedicate it, and so we already have.
Oh,
We've already checked the box on that, and it's
Okay, you
fine.
dedicated it to
Yep.
land. Okay,
And it got approved.
Yeah, so
so you gotta buy land by the end of the year.
No,
No,
Oh, no.
no,
Okay, so when do you have to? There's no.
we're
when.
good.
when we're ready.
Oh, okay, I understood.
But
It had to
what
be
we-
So
spent.
the rules on that money have changed since it's,
Okay, has the
Yeah.
amount changed?
No.
Okay.
other than the interest that's collected.
To further though, that money isn't necessarily the only budget to buy the land,
Yeah,
but that money was the grant that we got. And that's going to be applied to it to reduce the cost of it. So it may cost more money,
yeah.
and it probably will, obviously. We'll have to come up with that.
I was just getting nervous. We gotta get this done.
But that.
Or we lose it.
But that money was earmarked
Yeah,
for
okay.
that.
I feel better now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go shopping, Bill. You don't want it over here. Go find some land. Go find some land, Bill.
All right. Anybody else?
Steve DeGroot, Gray Fox. I don't think any of you guys would like to see that place right outside your door. We have a 2040 plan, and we all kind of understand where things go. And if there was a business coming here to put a industrial site out, that would not go there. You guys wouldn't allow it. I know you wouldn't, no matter what it is. That is zoned rural residential, right? Or agriculture right now, but that was designed to be rural residential in the 2040 plan. Am I right? Leroy?
I'm not sure. I thought it was light.
In the 2040,
Yeah.
it's rural residential.
Well, it doesn't change from UER from into 2040.
So
Both
we,
of these locations are rural residential.
yeah.
Mhm.
So nobody, I mean, you're putting this facility in, we all know what they look like. It's not a nice place, as much if you make it look like a barn or whatever you wanna do, but it's got a lot of activity going on, trucks, et cetera. And you're plugging it right in the middle of some of your highest home value areas that you got in the area. That's not gonna do us any good, any of us. And man, I would really take a strong, if you think you need it, which is a whole nother subject that I'm not gonna get into. But if you think you need it, figure the right place out. I think you know where it should go if you need it. And right now, you're not there. You've got a place by convenience. And it's not the right place, either one of those two places. And there's not any of you guys or gals that could look me in the eye and tell me different. If you wanna come and look at my house and look out the back door, we got 96 homes there. They're all worth $1 million plus. That's $100 million of real estate out there. You drop that by 5%, you just cost a hell of a lot of people some money. So,
The right place where it should go, they won't sell us the land. Came right out and said.
there's a whole process here that could be
I
taken
know.
care of, okay?
But I for one won't go down eminent domain to get, I won't.
Well, it might be better than making a mistake. It's like when you went to your first dance. You can either go home with the girl you want, or you can live with what you got for the rest of your life.
Sir, I do need you to come up and thank you, because remember, we're being live streamed, and so that people on the YouTube need to be able to
I'm
hear
new
it.
here around this parts, but
You're good.
if you're trying to build the building, have the water and sewer already up on, what is that, 160th? Up there, the quarry land, why don't we buy that, put it there? It's flat. You have the water hookup, Public Works would be right there, not many houses around there, just curiosity question.
It'd be 20 years before they want to sell anything.
We talked to them as well.
Yep.
That was a big no.
Yeah, but that's,
No, they didn't even ask about the price.
Yeah.
They still did.
No, they just, but the aggregate in the land is worth more than anything else.
Yeah,
Property, it was.
Yeah.
They have the
Years ago,
property
it was $29.
Yeah, the property is leased out to somebody who's doing the mining. And for them, the value of that lease is far more than what we would want to pay to buy that, overcome that. There's a
You're
lot.
even gonna name the building after them. They were-
Yeah, we said we did park right after the family name there, so I probably got time for one more if anybody else wants to. All right, so action items, we're gonna get out that other detailed information. Try to plan another workshop, another discussion. And build out some information detailing the why and the needs. What else am I missing?
We try and answer any questions that were brought to us tonight that weren't answered in the meeting.
Yeah.
Can somebody do that?
Hopefully we get some public input,
Chris,
emails, we can.
some of your questions get answered tonight or?
Some did, some did not.
Yeah.
More information.
Okay.
My purpose is the community and the residents of the city need to know what we do.
Mhm.
And we know soon. Otherwise, this train is at the station. And you need input. I'm not saying you don't need a different, building facility. I'm saying take a hard look at this, because that's an awful lot of money.
Mhm. We agree, Tom, that's the purpose of why we're having this discussion tonight. That's why we're having community engagement is an important part of the steps in this. This isn't something we're taking lightly.
And we, a snowplow contract, I think it was probably 3 years ago, told him 3 to 5 years, and he goes, yep, I'll continue to work with you, if you guys get a staff, public works thing going, I'll phase mine out slowly, and well, the years have gone by. So,
If we don't start something,
You
we
know,
won't
know
get
what's
to the end
going
of
on.
it, right? He wants to see some progress in us taking that over, so. Sir. I do need you to come up to the, because again, and we got about 1 minute for the time we said we'd end, so.
I just like the gentleman that spoke earlier, I'd like to second what he said. But it seemed to me we've had several discussions about site location. And it seems to me that you and the council have sort of given excuses why we can't find a place that is more of a commercial industrial site than the nice agricultural residential site that's option A and option B. So can we get you to commit to putting more attention or a second level of attention onto a more site selective activity to look at places that are maybe more industrial, commercial? They're not zoned that right now, but there's places that are next to them that are. Is that a possibility that you would include that in what you're?
We could talk about it. Again, Leroy, you and I, we've combed over, we looked at the map and started touching base with a lot of property owners over the years now. We could talk about it. It costs money to do that stuff, so.
Well, one of the other things though, is that you can start doing an overlay of about 20-25 acres. And start looking in those tracks are getting fewer and fewer now. Or they've already been purchased for a different use. Which is, there's an intended use for those already, or a commitment for a different intended use. So we need to, there aren't that many options. And the only industrial area that's here right now, we all know where it is, and it's surrounded by the place that said no at this point. So, why is it no? What's it worth?
So you're saying the only option we have is to do option A or option B?
No, but what I'm
That
saying
sounds
is,
about
what
what
I'm saying is that the amount of properties is not large.
It's
That's
not
out there.
easy.
No,
But
but we're looking.
You
We're
accepted
not
the
done
tough
looking.
jobs.
We're not done looking either. So.
Thank you.
All right, sounds good. We good?
Good.
We're good?
Make a motion.
Okay,
Adjourn.
thank you, Jay. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Abe. Motion is second. All in favor to adjourn, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing
Sorry,
none,
Abe.
motion